Hello, we are live. It is Thursday night. I'm Scott Allen Miller, and La Marcelita está aquí. We are here for the live stream, and we're trying a wider lens. We don't normally use the 16 millimeter, but we're on the 16 millimeter this week. And we're getting things set up. We're waiting for people to arrive. We've let some people know, and get some posts out, get some of you guys on. I know we are super late this week, and all right, we are live. It's working. Who do we have on? Anyone on yet? Yes, Alan is here. Alan is here. Alan says, I can't believe it is Thursday already. Oh, thank you for taking my water. I've been super dehydrated all day. You're going to find out why in a minute. No está bien, necesitas agua. I've not had enough coffee today. I've not had enough of anything today, so we have the Casa del Cafe. There's no way I'm going to get it to focus on this. Wait. How is that? Oh, I see. See if we can get it to...
No.
It's trying. It's thinking. There we go. Oh, we got it. Look at that. Uh-oh, it's going to see your face now. No, it's doing okay. Time for a little Nicaragua coffee. Oh, we're down to 3 people. We were up to 5. Nope, they're back. We're back to 5. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the show. I have been in the police station all day. All day. The entire day. I'm so tired. I didn't think we were even going to make it to the live stream tonight. We're definitely going to be doing a shorter one than usual tonight. And Marcela is here working. She actually has... Oh, we should take this out of the camera. A little bit too... Yeah, we'll bring the microphone a little bit closer. I was supposed to be getting the new microphone stand. It turns out it's still on the boat. The Temple of G says, yo. Alan says, OMG, Nicaragua coffee. Argentina coffee is horrible. I liked Argentinian coffee. I mean, I liked coffee shops in Argentina. I didn't have Argentinian coffee per se that I know of. Alan says, why... Oh, Renee is here. Yo. Everyone's saying yo today. Why at the police station all day? So both why at the police station and why was it all day? So needed to register a car. So we went to do the first time that I've ever registered a new vehicle. Here, so a whole new adventure for me. This is something. And, oh, we have a little Boston Terrier under here. He just came over to say hello. Oh, él necesita la cama del otro cuarto. Lo siento. Pero él está un baby.
Yes, a kitty.
Oh, Temple of G says, I just sold my business. I'm moving down. Yes, Alan, I did get a new car. I actually got 2 new cars. Since he's been gone, I have bought 2 cars. Oh, that was terrible. Terrible. She's like deadpan tonight. Like this is all the emotion you're getting for the evening. So yes, we're gonna have a bunch of episodes on the show about buying a used car, about buying a new car, about registering a car, financing a car. A bunch of stuff is coming up on the show. But yes, today was my adventure in registering. So it's in my name. So I had to be there registering, and started the day at 7:30, heading out to register the car, and literally came home and turned on the live stream. I mean, I had to I had to do some things. Like I had to shower real quickly because I was out in the sun all day, and had to pick her up because she didn't have a ride, and things like that. Like and grab water and set up the camera, right? But like that's all I've done today is that. Had one quick meal so that we weren't passing out, and then got here. Like that is the whole day. And her exciting day was arguing with a school that didn't want to give her money back after her kids couldn't go there, and getting a delivery at the bus station, which went fine but is never fun, and having a dental appointment. So yay, lots of fun there. Mucho divertido para ti. So yeah, it's been super fun day around here. And the registration is not done, so I get to do it again tomorrow. Much like my trip to Aduana, it goes much longer than you think. KL7RRC, hola from the cold place. That must be Canada. That's what we call it, the cold place. Well, that coffee's way too hot to drink. It also says, see if we can see it. Oh, it did focus on it. Nicaragua. Temple of G deleted some very important statement. But Temple of G, that's super exciting. You sold your business. I read it and I didn't give it the emphasis that it really needed. You sold your business and you are moving down to Nicaragua. That is super exciting. When are you coming down? What kind of business was it that you sold, first of all? When are you coming down? How many people are you bringing? What all's going on? Inquiring minds want to know. Alan says, well, my day has been great too. Neighbor says he's going to poison my dog. The hell's going on with the neighbor? Wait, KL7RSC is coming from Siberia for real? No, that can't be right. That is the cold place. Estás en el video sin emoción.
Ok, ya. Dominado, corte.
This is Marcela's new hairdo. I don't think anyone's seen it yet. ¿Es la primera vez en video?
Sí, yo creo que sí.
It was más o menos.
No, fue como por aquí.
Ah. Super corte. Ahora.
Uy,
Pero es
sí,
bonito.
pero creo que pronto. Sí, pero.
Not really coming from Siberia, no. Well, the secret, Alan, is before they do that to poison the neighbor. That's the obvious fix to that situation. You guys are quiet. We got like 17 people on. Come on, guys. We're late. Everyone's got way too much tequila in them at this point. Actually, that's what I needed. I should have had a bottle of tequila over here. I'm so dehydrated, though. I'm not ready to drink. Patricia says, Nicaragua just lost me with the dog poisoning threat. That's not okay. That's why we keep our dogs behind big walls. Like, just safety is a big thing. Here we go. My wife and I have 2 little girls, 3 and 2. Ooh, I feel like I just saw this information. We always go to Mexico and snowbird from Calgary to a new place in Mexico, always. But land there is just out of reach for what we want. But I do love Mexico. I do too. Mexico's pretty sweet. It's a nice place. I mean, it's such a big place, right? So there's just a crazy amount of everything in Mexico, and it's you know, if you want to have everything within one set of borders, it's a good place to go. Do they build good Mexican-style tiki homes? Not sure I can answer that. I don't know Mexican-style tiki homes exactly. Maybe if you send a picture, you can't send a picture. Let me see if I can find one. Mexico tiki home. We'll take a look. Am I dancing Ladies' Night at Desperados? I am not, but she will be attending. I got a lot of pictures of tiki huts, but I don't know if that's a Mexican-style tiki home. I mean, we have ranchos, which is what that would be here, but you don't want to live in one. It's a fire hazard, like super dangerous. Tim is here. Hola from Chicago this week. Back in Nicaragua next week. Very nice. Patricia says, are you good? Oh, I already read that. Alan says, lol. The Temple of G. Haha. Tiffany Manifest Great Things 44. Hola from Florida. Alan says, Marcela will be. Scott, not so much. No, she's not going to be dancing. She's just attending. I'm doing neither. But there's a lot of people. Vas a ir a la noche de mujeres en la playa Desperados. Yes, Dominica would be upset if we didn't remind everyone who may be in Nicaragua this weekend that Saturday night, ¿a qué hora?
Pienso que a las 8 está en Nicaragua.
Okay. If you look at Nicarumba.com, Nicarumba.com, there is a listing for it, but about 8 o'clock at Desperados in Las Piñitas, it is ladies' night. It is ladies only.
Yeah. 8.
Ocho, a las ocho, at 8 o'clock. It is, but yeah, we will do our best to show it on the show. We're high tech here. We're going to do this. Nope. Cambio. So, it doesn't matter. 8 o'clock, desperados, ladies, head out. Leave the kids with your husbands or whomever, random neighbors, packs of dogs on the street, whoever will take care of them, and head out to the party. Should be a good time. They've been working hard, let me tell you, to find dancers for this. It has been a constant thing of them driving dancers out to the beach to have them audition at the hotel. So that's been a fun thing going on. Renee says, so average attire, saw your video, typical around town, where to fit in as a local. Long pants, casual leather shoes, short sleeve with collar, stay away from shorts, sandals, really? Or okay? So if you want to fit in, which most of us aren't going to do no matter what, then yes, jeans or other long pants, normally jeans, at least over 50% of the time, I would say. But other light pants, absolutely, other light pants. Other pants which are light as opposed to jeans, okay. Linen pants would be okay, but you would stand out a little bit. They're not very common here. Jeans, like people wear jeans all the time, especially for men. And shoes can be pretty casual. Like they don't have to be leather. They could be a lot of different things. You'd be okay on shoes. That's sandals. Very little are people wearing sandals, but even that's okay. The long pants are the big thing, which I did not do. I was at the police all day. I'm like, no, I'm not wearing pants. Because we're in a heat wave, right? This is a really hot week. This is the hottest week of the year so far. And Yose, she's going through photos for Nicaragua, and we managed to get one where some old guy's walking past Russell and totally checking her out as she's making empanadas. He's like, ella necesita su número. Shirts, you really don't need collared shirts to fit in. If you're dressing up at all, yes, collared shirts would be normal. Short sleeve, absolutely fine. People only really wear long sleeves if they're trying to be like super fancy or covering up their arms for some reason. But so short sleeve, cool. But even like t-shirts and jeans, you're going to fit in. You may not fit in at like the kind of restaurant you plan to go to, but you'll certainly fit in on the street. If you're like me, like I just don't care. Right, I'm going to wear a t-shirt and shorts and sandals a lot of days because I just want to be comfortable, and I think people should be a little bit less formal, right? Like, and no one cares. I just stand out a little bit, and that's fine. If people want to wear jeans and I don't, like, no one complains under normal circumstances. So that's pretty much it. But definitely, it's casual here, but they wear jeans. Don't overthink it, just palapa roofs. Yeah, so here a palapa is called a ranchero, and they are absolutely everywhere, but they're fire hazards. You would never put a habitation under one anywhere, including Mexico. Like, that's just way too dangerous. We have seen places with people in them go up, and luckily the people got out, but it was a near thing, and it was very small space to get out of, and they go up, they're almost like a bomb. It's like a dust bomb, so they just turn into an inferno in seconds. You get no warning at all. Alan says, don't the ladies dance as well? Pienso que no hay bailando para las mujeres en la fiesta. Solo una espectacular.
No, creo que es una fiesta también.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, you're right, Alan. There will be ladies dancing as well, but the ladies will not be dancing on the stage or with the poles. I don't know if there's poles. I made that up, but you can visualize all you want. Or they just have to sit there and watch. I have no idea what goes on during these things. I really don't either, but there is a show, and then the ladies will be dancing. Because there's, music. Oh, ad says 8 to midnight, yes. And it is on Saturday night. So if you go to that and you want to then go out, if you're one of the ladies who goes to ladies' night and you want to go out, then people will move to Pelican Surf at midnight, which is a normal beach bar place, but be prepared if you're going to do that. You're moving from an upscale place that is doing a ladies' night to a dive bar that is having a wild party until 4 o'clock for the locals. So the vibe will change dramatically. Tiffany manifests great things. I love the beautiful modern homes in Tulum with the tiki style design. Yeah, that's what came up. A lot of like Tulum. Like, it's funny because tiki is not even a real thing. It's a fake Polynesian style thing that came from like the U.S. and somehow Tulum has latched onto it and put Polynesian stuff on the Mayan coast in some weird way as like a big thing. But En Contiki is a bar in Las Piñatas, right, with that exact style and everything, but you don't live under the palapa. Alan says, the important thing, and no one really cares if you fit in here. Nicaragua is very come as you are country. That's a good way to put it, Alan. That, like, yeah, you won't be mistaken. So you have to kind of choose, like, are you looking to be mistaken as a local, which is hard for many of us, especially once you start talking. The chances are that you're going to sound like a Nicaraguan. Even Nicaraguans who live in, like, El Salvador for too long struggle to fit in as Nicaraguans too much. So, you're probably never going to cross that line. Then there's the, do you want people to like notice you? Well, they're probably going to notice you anyway, but if you dress really Nicaraguan, you'll be noticed a lot less. There's different layers, but if you're looking for like, is it acceptable? Yeah, whatever. I mean, I'm like, t-shirt and shorts, it's not a problem at all. Unless you're going to like a government office. You're going to Migracion, yeah, you need to dress like a Nicaraguan because it's just a thing. Tom says, Scott is the best unpaid expat relocation advisor ever and better than all the paid ones. Thank you. I appreciate that. Don Timoteo says, tourists from other Central American countries wear t-shirts, shorts, and sandals. Tourists meaning the Central American tourist or tourists who just happen to be passing through there? I think that's right, though. I feel like Nicaragua is much more weirdly formal in that sense than the other Central American countries. Definitely more than Belize, that's for sure. Chris says hi. Alan says not in the stage, but in the crowd they'll be dancing, enjoying themselves. Probably. You can't help but dance here in Nicaragua. Patricia says there are synthetic thatched roofs now that look like the real thing. I presume they're fire resistant. Probably, but we don't have them because thatching comes from here, right? So here in León, it's local. It's La Paz Centro is the capital of thatching. So we get tons of cheap thatching all the time, but it's sadly very dangerous. Now, if you have a lot of the outside restaurants, it's just poles and thatching. So if it was to go up in a fire, you just stand up from your table and walk away, and like it's pretty darn safe. But if you're like asleep in a bed and it starts and you don't notice it, that's when it gets dangerous. Alan says it's not like they're going to just sit quietly in their chairs at the tables. True. Janet's here. She says my Nica husband won't let me go to the ladies' night. Mancho dijo no para Janet para ir a la noche de mujeres. Tiffany, we're going to shorten her to Tiffany, or T44. It's like some gang symbol with that. Do you know much about Playa El Gigante? My best friend is looking to travel there and looking into purchasing land. I don't know a lot about El Gigante. I know a lot of people like it. I've passed through. It's a beautiful area, but I don't have like any info on it, and I definitely don't know the latest updates. I haven't been there in a while. Not an area that I go to regularly. It's pretty far away and a little bit off the beaten path. Don says, Costa Rican tourists wear shorts, t-shirts, sandals, same things with the Honduras tourists. I've not noticed it with the Honduran, but yeah, you're right. Costa Rican, I would totally expect that because that's what they would do in Costa Rica. Alan says, Janet, I told Anna she should go. Alan's like, get out of the house. It's my chance to drink alone. Sometimes you just got to drink alone. Yemmy's here. Good to see. No, it's Marcela tonight. They switch off.
Okay.
Ella dice Dominica.
Ah.
They get mistaken for each other all the time. All the time. And they both do the show.
Dominique.
Patricia says, just don't tell your husband, Janet, it's not about the strippers. You're supporting your friend's business. That is correct. Patricia understands. It's not about the strippers. It's about the strippers. Janet says, you're a good, confident man, Alan. Valentina Castillo, hola, mami.
Ay, hola, mi amor.
Para ti. Hola. Soy tu fan.
Te amo.
And it says, okay, sorry, no problem. It is everybody. Like, everybody mistakes them all the time. Numero uno, fan numero uno. Valentina. Voy a mudar solo un poco. Es mejor. Hola, Marcela. Best wishes to you. De Yemi. It's aquí. Oh, there. Más fácil. Y mi agua. I have to protect my water. Someone's been stealing it. No puedo salir, entonces es súper importante para mí.
Okay.
We have a lot of people on. 31 people on at the moment. That is awesome. Que bueno. Super bueno. Y, ¿cómo estás para la gente? La Marcelita.
Bien.
¿Sí?
Sí, sí, sí.
¿A qué hora? No, a esta hora. ¿Cuántos tratamientos de quimio teniste?
4.
Tuviste? 4? Okay. So at this point, she's had 4 of her chemo treatments. For those who don't know, I'm sure almost everyone knows, but Marcela has stage 4 Hodgkin Lymphoma, which is a kind of like a blood cancer, but it's actually of the lymphatic system, and has been quite ill for about 9 months. We caught something around July that something was wrong, and it took a long time to identify because it started as they thought pneumonia or bronchitis, something of that vein, and it took a while to really identify what it is because lymphoma is very hard to catch, so at this point she's been getting oncology treatments. Probably for 3 months, 4 months maybe. But she was so sick with ancillary things at the beginning that they couldn't start real treatment for quite some time. So she had to get better. So she was in the hospital continuously for almost a month at one point, but on and off for several months. It was a lot. And this past Monday, so today's Thursday, hace 3 días.
¿Fue el lunes?
Sí, fue lunes. So on Monday was her 4th chemo treatment, which seems to be going well. And they have to get to 6 before they do the really big scan and see what the status is, to see how things have changed, what the progress is. And that's halfway through the intended series of treatments, which will go to 12. They're every other week. So she's now, second treatment was 2 weeks. 3rd treatment, 4th treatment. So she's currently 7 weeks into chemo out of a total of, I want to say 24 weeks or 22 weeks. So that's where we are right now. And she will have her next one in about 10 days. So around the 23rd, 24th. It's a Monday, whatever that is. You can figure it out. So that is her current status. It's a little bit difficult to know exactly what's going on because they really can't track that closely. So it takes time to figure things out. So the important thing is that she's feeling pretty good. For the most part, she's very tired. Super cansada.
Sí.
Todo el tiempo. But there's a lot of other medicines as well. She needs to sleep a lot. She needs to relax a lot. It's very important. But in realidad, te sientes mejor de julio o agosto.
Sí, mucho mejor.
And so, she was really bad 9 months ago. Really, really bad with lung problems. That were an ancillary effect of the cancer, and now realistically she's feeling decent. It's now it's the chemo that she's feeling rather than the effects of the cancer, and it really feels like there's progress, even though we can't tell, right? So that's not an official statement, but it feels that way, right? And so, and for those who are, of course, looking for a way to support, we do have a GoFundMe for her, because even though and we say this every time, right? So a lot of you have heard this a lot, but here in Nicaragua, her medical treatment is covered. So she's completely taken care of by the state as far as her health care. So it's one of these awesome things. And the oncology process here has been really impressive. We're really, really happy with how that has gone. But of course, she is a single mom. She has 2 kids. and there's just a lot, right? They have to go to school. She has transportation. She has to move between cities because she lives here in Leon, but she goes to her treatments in Managua because that's just where the oncology centers are, which will change later this year, but not until it's she's no longer in chemo. There is a new oncology center set to open here later this year, a big one. And there's just a lot of expenses and stuff that go with, obviously, being sick and needing to take care of the family and such. And so we have a GoFundMe to help raise funds for her, which I will throw onto the chat as well. But it's always in the show notes of every show that we do. So anytime that you're looking for it, absolutely, you can find it there. So we just want to thank everyone. There's been a lot of support for her. It's been really, really amazing. And we did not see the last donation that came in until I just opened it this second. But 10% of the total amount that's being needed is $500. Has come in. So this es el último que yo vi.
Sí. Wow.
Sí. So I was going to say we're nearly at 60%, but we're actually over 60%. We're almost to 2/3 of the total amount of money that she is looking to raise, the amount that we think would really make every bit makes a difference, of course, but we're really looking at raising $5,000 total to get her through what's probably about 2 years. Most everything will be now, and then next year it should be a lot easier, but it will taper off. It won't suddenly end. And so we're thinking that $5,000 will probably make the difference. And so the actual amount raised, if you're looking at the GoFundMe, says $2,345, but that's inaccurate because the first 1,000 was not in the GoFundMe. So it's actually at $3,345, which is almost exactly 2/3, essentially exactly 2/3 of the goal to 5,000. So it's been amazing progress, and thank you so much to everyone who has been pouring out support for her. You guys as a community have been absolutely amazing and made such a huge difference.
Sí, gracias.
So we'll just, I said I would put that in, and I didn't. I will do that. All right. Luke is back. He says, hola, Scott and Marcelita, back from dinner. And, Valentina says, te amo, mami.
Oh.
Her daughter is watching the live stream right now because her daughter is in Managua. ¿Ella está en Managua?
Sí, Managua.
Okay. She's in Managua con tu mamá?
Sí. With
her grandmother.
Por la escuela.
Yeah. Because she's got to go to school and stuff. And Marcela is out here in Leon at their home. Janet says, I'm praying for you every day, Marcelita. I know God can heal you, and I believe very much in the power of prayer. Valentina sends you lots of smiles and hearts and love. Tiffany 44 T44 says, the live is much better to learn Spanish than my Duolingo app. So I warn you against learning from my Spanish. I do speak a little Spanish, un poco, pero I mean, Marcela says I speak Spanish. Ella dijo que yo hablo español, pero no sé si es verdad.
Sí. Con palabras nuevas, pero...
Sí, always, siempre con palabras nuevas. Always with new words. I've been what's ridiculous is I have been speaking Spanish to some degree since hace tenés 6 años. So I should be able to speak Spanish pretty well, given like her entire lifetime I've been speaking Spanish. It's a slow process, very slow process. But I'm glad, T44, that we're able to help you with your Spanish there. Alan says, good night, guys. Going to spend time with Anna. Have a good night. See, he has to spend time with her now so that she's free to go. He has to get his fill so that she can go out and party on Sábado.
Pienso que sí. No sé.
Awesome Carrillo Clan. Hello from Miami. Valentina Sunray.
Oh.
She's smiling. Tiffany, they are smiles, yes. Tiffany 44, you are now in my prayers, Marcelita. And there's the GoFundMe. Aquí?
Ajá.
Aquí. Common Man gives us some stars. Thank you. So, I said this earlier, we didn't have nearly as many people on, so I spent the entire day.
Mañana necesitamos hablar con Moncho.
Janet, she needs to talk to Moncho tomorrow. That's Janet's husband.
Sí.
She's going to have a discussion with him in Espanol. we have the ASMR. She's going to have a discussion with him in Espanol. Luke says, I start my Spanish tutoring here in Matagalpa la semana próxima. Próxima semana. Sí. Qué bueno. As we'll have to see how that goes. Luke is listo para hablando.
Okay.
Aquí. Es Luke.
Ya, recuerdo.
Sí. She remembers you. Con la barba.
Sí.
La barba otra. They hung out at the 79 bar early February 8th. All right. Oh, so yes. So the reason that I'm so tired and dehydrated. Oh, muchos corazones. Vince is here. Hey, Vince. He says, hey, Scott. Daute Tier 1 says, I love what you're doing for Marcelita. My family and I are moving to San Juan del Sur from Houston. The number of people that we get coming from Houston. So I came from Dallas, but my wife's family is in Houston. So we're like whenever we're in the U.S., we're in Houston. And we're very connected to Houston. And the number of y'all that are coming from or connecting from Houston is unbelievable. Like, it's crazy. Couldn't be more excited. We joined the WhatsApp groups and looking to establish connections. I may be overstating how many people are coming from Houston because I see people in here and in the WhatsApp group, and I see Houston come up a lot, but it's a lot. Houston is definitely a destination with an interest in Nicaragua. I know that there's a community there. Same thing with Miami. When I lived in Dallas, which I was in Dallas for a long time, I was in Dallas longer. That's not true. I was in Dallas a little less than I've been in Nicaragua. Can that be? No, I think I was in Dallas a little bit more, but pretty close. And I lived in Little Salvador. And so it hardly prepares you for Nicaragua, but living in Little Salvador meant that we were in a Spanish-speaking community. We had very Central American food everywhere, little pulperias on the corners, like, pupusa shops within walking distance all over. Like, it's surprising density of Central Americans living in that zone. Sean St. Peter, been in San Juan del Sur for 7 months now. No looking back to Canada. Welcome to Nicaragua. That's awesome. T44 says, Scott, your Spanish sounds much better than mine. My friends say I sound a lot like a special Dora. Dora Especial. Dora, Dora, Dora the Explorer. Dun 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 dun. She's a super cool explorer, Dora. Do 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 do. Grab your backpack. Let's go. Vamonos. So I'm working on it. My proudest moment in Spanish was many years ago. I was mistaken as a Mexican in Spain. I'm never going to pass as a Mexican in Mexico. I'm never going to pass for a Nicaraguan in Nicaragua, but I did pass as Mexican in Spain, and that made me pretty proud. Of course, it wasn't like Madrid. It was like Sevilla, I bet. But still, I'm going to take it. Janet says, it's okay. I don't mind if I want my husband going to... I don't mind it. I don't want my husband going to strip shows either. Oh, Janet, now she's going to have a conversation with both of you. Of course, we don't have any for him to go to. We only have them for you. But Valentina says, obvio. Obvio.
Uh-huh.
Oh, te extraño mucho.
Ay, mi amor. Yo también.
Can you sign in Spanish? No. But I can't sign in English, so it's okay. It's about equal. But can someone sign in Spanish? Yes. So I don't know if there's any reason that came up in particular, but Nicaragua is actually pretty famous in the deaf community for being one, it has a relatively high ratio of people who have deafness as a concern here, and it was disconnected from much of the world during the development of international sign language, and so the deaf communities here, I believe this is the 1970s-ish, maybe I'm wrong, it could have been like the 40s, I could be way off. I feel like it was the 70s. They actually independently developed sign language here in Nicaragua. So it's called Nicaraguan Sign Language. And it is a completely independent language that developed without outside influence. And so it's considered one of like the 3 major sign language formats or whatever. And it's like a big deal that it arose here completely organically from within the deaf community. So it's really interesting. I don't know if that's why you brought it up or... Oh, boy, that led me onto a whole rabbit hole, and Janet comes back and says, I meant to say sing. I can sing solo un poco en español, pero I can sing just a little in Spanish, but it is my plan to learn some songs because when you do karaoke here, people are fine with you singing in English, and if you're singing like Journey, or I'll do like the Georgia Satellites and stuff, and people are like, yeah, cool. Like they know the songs and they like the style, and there's a lot of American rock music that come here. But there's also the tradition is to be wildly drunk and sing the equivalent of sappy American country songs, but in Spanish, and it's Mexican borracho music. And so I'm gonna work up some of those songs because that's just what you do. So you just shoot some tequilas, you have a Tonya, and you sing Me emborracharé por tu culpa, me emborracharé, me emborracharé. So yeah, I'll get some and do a little bit at some point. Luke says, when does the car video drop? I'm not sure, Luke. I got some recorded. I want to get some more. The car has not been in my grubby little hands really since we got it. So you guys may have seen the Nicaloro post about it. So we kind of hinted at what's happening. I'll give a little bit more hint here. We did get a very cool, and I'm super happy with it. And the very first one in León, Chinese car. Me encanta esta foto. Es perfecto. She's going through, so she's got a laptop and she's actually doing work while we're here, which is actually, this is kind of cool that she's able to be on the show and just use it as work time. But one of the things that she does is she runs the social media and the media, not just the social media, but media in general for Nicaragua. And one of the things that we do as Nicaragua is a ton of photography and videography. And so selecting photos, necesitamos empezar a poner fotos de Nicaragua en Nicaraguan para Nicaragua.
Okay, sí.
Una selección más o menos 8 por concierto. Sí, porque es 8 en una colección. And so she does, like right now she's going, we pull out between 1 and 500 photos of a given concert every week. Pienso que no.
Sí.
She's trying to to do stuff on the screen like it's a phone. It is a touch screen, I think, but I don't think it does that. So going through 500 photos every concert and picking out what's the highlights is rather time consuming. It's very fun. And one of the things we're doing for the show, oh my gosh, we're up to 43 people, 43 personas en el LiveStream ahorita.
Wow.
And so I've been using, and it's sitting here somewhere, I show it sometimes, the Nikon D3500. And really, we can use more photos with different angles and a different perspective. And so we have another lens, because I collect this stuff. So we bought a Nikon D3400, which is essentially the same camera, that is currently on a ship coming from the U.S. Hopefully it makes it here relatively soon, and it'll make it that we can actually take more like 1,000 shots per show, which will give us a lot more footage, but it's going to be a lot more work to go through. But yeah. So, the car video. Yeah, so it was tied up with work stuff, and but super excited about the car we have. It's absolutely amazing. While making the car video, actually ended up getting 2 cars. So there's multiple car videos coming. We've got a bit of topics about that I think will be interesting. The one that will be coming first, actually most likely, is that we got a used old beater truck that's a diesel 5-speed, and I'm really the only one that can drive it, me and the maintenance manager. So it's just like his and my personal beater truck, but it's a good size. It's not huge, right? It's a Mitsubishi Montero, and old, but with a rebuilt diesel and a really 53 personas. And so it's an old diesel, and it's perfect for like taking the dirt roads and stuff, but it did have a clutch problem. So for 2 weeks we've had this truck and couldn't drive it because the clutch was shot. That's been repaired. I drove it tonight, and it's a short drive, but I have a high confidence that it is now working and that we can actually take it places. So it is an old 2002 diesel, so we are not taking it on wild long distance road trips, but it is going to be available for doing a lot more stuff than we've been able to do before, and we'll be able to use it for whatever things we need. It is officially a work truck, but there's only 2 possible drivers for it. So when the maintenance manager says he doesn't need it, it is mine to use as I want, and almost always at night it is free for me. Now, I don't currently have my license, so that's mostly irrelevant. But once we get that fixed, we'll have all kinds of things going on. Renee says, so, based on overall population meandering about, is the male-female ratio more or less equal, or is it skewed because work is mostly related to men, with women more stay at home or seen more at events? It is going to depend what you mean, Renee, as far as like, do you mean the sidewalk? Do you mean the actual population in the country? Do you mean people who are away from the home but might be in an office? Do you mean at a bar at night? But I'll do my best to fill that in. In general, you're going to find a large number of women outside the home because they don't like to stay at home. I don't know. There is a higher number of women than men in Nicaragua. And it is many men have left for work. Many women have too, but the number of men who have left is much higher. So you generally in a population have a few more women than men, but here you have noticeably more than men in general. When you go out at night, you are, I think, in my personal experience, more likely to find gaggles of women out and about than gaggles of men out and about. So if you go to a random bar and you go to a random group, it's likely to be about half and half. But if you find a table that is not a mixed group, it is much more likely to be women, in my experience. El perro, por favor. But it's not wildly different. I think during the day on the sidewalk, it feels awfully close. There isn't a, men go out and women stay home or vice versa kind of thing. And unlike in, say, the United States, where quite often you have a large number of like women who are like, we don't really want to go out, they stay at home, and men are like, we go out a lot more often. That is not the case here. If anything, it is the opposite. Ella tiene la cama para el perro. She just brought in the dog bed because he was scratching at the door. Skymer8. Thanks for all the videos. I'm wondering, how difficult is it to navigate Nicaragua in a wheelchair? I'm sure the services aren't the same as the U.S., but is it possible? Thanks. It's plausible. It's hard. It really is. Oh, there's my doggy. Hi, baby. Yeah, you're so sweet. There are people here in wheelchairs. The wheelchairs that they have here are different than the wheelchairs you see in the United States. They have these chairs that have like bicycle pedals, and people go like this with their arms, and that's what moves them. But people have different reasons for having wheelchairs, and there's a lot of leg mobility, there's a lot of amputees here because there were multiple wars within the last couple generations. So there's a lot of people who have taken American shelling and have lost limbs. So you're actually going to encounter people missing limbs on a regular basis because you literally are surrounded by vets of of domestic wars and children who were bombed in their homes. Right? Alan just left and was talking about his wife Anna. But Anna used to have to go into a bomb shelter as a child. She's my age. We're like within a few days, birthdays of each other. And that was my dog. Being my age, she remembers the American bombers flying over and bombing the barrios in the mountains. And so children losing arms, like it's everybody. The wars are so recent. So the number of people who need to be in wheelchairs is rather high, but the number who need it because of normal aging kind of bodily damage or wear and tear is much lower, and the number who have it from traumatic injuries is much higher. So we rarely see what Americans picture as a wheelchair. Certainly they exist, obviously. What we do see quite often is custom-made mobility devices, but some of the things that are very noticeably difficult is getting around. Like often they're going down the streets because the sidewalks are inaccessible, right? Completely inaccessible. Most restaurants are not accessible. It would be very, very difficult to go in a wheelchair. And, the last thing I want to do is tell someone Nicaragua is not the right place for you. But if I was in a wheelchair, in all honesty, the city that I would be looking at very strongly is Guate, is Ciudad de Guatemala, Guatemala City. They are very accessible to a point. So my company's CEO, she lives in Buenos Aires, but she spent a lot of time, she's from Merida, but she spent a lot of time in her young adulthood living in Mexico City, which is a very modern, very accessible, very everything, right? And she was noticeably shocked by how accessible and thoughtful about accessibility Guatemala City was. Like, it stood out to us that both of us are like, wow, they really are an accessible city for the most part. A lot of Ubers, a lot of cabs, different things. There is public transportation here. They will do what they can to accommodate you. People will make things work, but it is a challenge here in a way that it would not be in some other places. So I can't imagine where in Nicaragua would end up being what would qualify as reasonably easy if you are wheelchair bound. So yeah, that will be a challenging situation. I do get asked that on a semi-regular basis. Be very aware that it may be a problem. RC's here, says, hey Scott. Janet says, what kind of rental unit can you get for $100 a month in Leon? So I've never actually tried to get a rental unit at $100. So let's just be clear. Let's tell you what we know about that I have seen in the last few years. At $180, and I have an episode on this you can go see. We have ones above that. We have ones at like $200, but starting at $180, I actually have an apartment that we use for whatever. I haven't been in it in 6 months, but she used to live in it when she didn't have a house here and she needed a place. She would just go there and make it her home. When we have workers in from out of town, now she has a house in the neighborhood, so she doesn't ever go there. But if we have employees that need to use it, we've had some of you guys use it previously. We try not to do that because they don't like transient people coming in. Not to make you guys sound like you're transient, but you know what I mean. Because it's a rental. And it's double gated. It's very private. It's actually quite awkward to use if you're not a regular user of it, because there's like a lot of keys and like it's a bit weird. But it's very, very secure. It's very comfortable. I like the apartment a lot. It has a good amount of space. The master bedroom is big and comfy. The guest bedroom is a normal bedroom, but perfectly adequate. Nice windows. It has lots of air. It's inside a gated apartment complex, so leaving your windows open, even though there's bars on them, crazy secure. No random person is going to come up to, no random dog is going to come up to the window. A cat, yes, but the living room, small but serviceable. It has a kitchen. It has a washing machine. It has a small backyard, which is often used for drying clothes because that's what you do here. But it has like all these spaces. The bathroom is quite small, but it's adequate. I find it very comfortable. We added air conditioning to it, and that unit is $180 per month, and it is the equivalent of a mid-size small starter home, a 2-bedroom starter home here in the country, just as an apartment rather than as a standalone house. So I like it a lot. That's what 180 gets you. For me, if I was living alone and I had to choose my budget, I would just live in that, right? If I didn't have my dogs who need a giant yard, if I didn't have kids and a wife and family, right? If it was just me, that would be really comfortable as a master bedroom, very comfortable using the second room as an office and or guest bedroom. And hello, someone's here, but I can't see. Who's here? Oh, it's Paul. Kiana, who's here?
I have a funny joke that you.
Oh no! Well, just remember you're live and everyone can hear you.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
I have a funny joke if you want to share it.
Okay, go ahead.
It's a picture.
Oh, I don't know if I'll be able to. I can give it a try. Paul has something to share with the class.
Maybe.
He wasn't ready. Did someone just
Scott
arrive?
has to approve.
Oh, I have to approve it. Oh my gosh! All right, it's inappropriate, but not so inappropriate. Let's see if we can. Can we hide enough that it'll focus on it? It's your face. Hide your face. Oh, it does not want to. It's too much. It's. It won't do it. No, it can't find the phone. I'm sorry. It was a funny picture, but we can't. Can't do it. It's got so much facial detection that even when we get it's like it's looking all over for faces and doesn't see one in the picture. So like if we hide completely and hold up something really obvious that it can 3D scan with LiDAR or something, then it normally finds it. Even that it didn't find it, but
That's pretty cool stuff.
yeah, it works hard to make sure that there's a face in focus. Goodbye. ¿Cuál es el tema? No, okay. We lost whatever we were talking about. Oh, 180 a month para un apartamento. And then, so I know in Sutiava proper, there is an apartment building not entirely unlike the one that I have a unit in. And that one has like 6 units, and they're smaller. They're 1 bedroom, 1 bath. They're not studios, though. They're 1 bedroom, 1 bath. You know, so you have a kitchen unit. They're like front to back. So you walk in the door, and you're in like the kitchen living room area. Obviously, it's not huge. And so you have like a kitchen area. You have a living room area. Then you have a door to the bathroom and a door to the bedroom. So it's 3 actual discrete rooms, whereas a studio would be 2 discrete rooms, right? Just the bathroom and the living space. Those are 120, but they have, you know, a guard at the front and a shared gate, so they're very secure, nice neighborhood, nothing fancy, definitely in the barrio, but livable. So for me personally, I would spend the more money on the 180, but it really depends on your budget, obviously, and what you're going to do with the other room. For me, I would have it as an office studio space, and absolutely love it, and then have the bedroom just be the bedroom. I may actually use the small room as the bedroom and the big one as the office. Like, that would make sense for me, the way that I do things, but those would be options. What I've seen less than 120, because it's very hard to find. So if you're looking for rooms in the barrio, you might be able to find things in like very Nika style rooms, but I don't know what those are going to look like, and I don't know. Don Johnson, I believe, has one in that price range, and I have not seen his yet. We will try to get out and film his. I do have an episode where we filmed my old office. This would be 2022. We had the house from late January 2022, and we moved out of it in November, but I went back, I think, in January to film it before we completely turned it over. So we only lived there for about 10 months, which is odd for me to say because it was an iconic house for me in my mind. It is, when I say I live in Nicaragua, it's the house that I kind of jumped to. It wasn't when we lived on the beach. That was like a transition time, even though we were there for 8-9 months. Maybe 9 months probably. It was the first place that we lived in the city. It's the first place that we rented. It was the first time that we were in a traditional Nicaraguan home and so forth. So maybe that's a good way to think of it. When we had that house, directly next door to it was a space that was converted for student housing. So when you're getting down to about $100 or less, you're basically into what's known as student housing, and these are very tiny studios that are meant for students, right? Students typically have a different need than the normal adults, and so they have these super efficient little units, but the ones that we were in, so they were very cheap. Right, it was very safe. It was a nice neighborhood, right on a main road. reasonably quiet, but they were absolutely tiny. I put my office in it. I did not live in it. And we hooked up, we added air conditioning to it, which I just did a video that talked about that a little bit. It did have a nice window. I had nice light, but just 2 windows. One was out into a courtyard, so I got nice outside light. It felt like an outside window, even though we were in the middle of the city, which was nice because I could have like glass and I could have the curtains open or whatever. It didn't matter because you couldn't get in from the outside. And then it had another small window. I think it actually had 2, and they went into a hallway. And the idea was you open up all the windows. One was in the bathroom, one was in the bedroom going to the hallway, and one was in the bedroom going to the courtyard. And you open them all up, and you got a bit of airflow and a lot of nice light. And it really was a comfortable unit. So with that, one of those was my office. Another one that was a mirror of it was Paul's bedroom. So Paul, that was just here trying to tell us the joke, actually had a full bedroom in one, and it was comfortable. He liked it. Now, my office and his room had split units for air conditioning, and so the thing would cool down in like 30 seconds. You walk in, and it's burning hot, and you're like, beep, and the room just goes, whoa, and it's super comfy because it was so tiny and had this big air conditioning unit, the same as we're using for this office. So the space was itty bitty, and notice no kitchen. It was just a tiny bedroom and a separate bathroom, but the bathroom didn't have a door, it had a curtain. So it wasn't like you'd really want to have guests in there. But other than that, it was safe and comfy and cheap. $75. This was not $100. This is way less than $100, right? So, right, it's understandable that it's going to be pretty limited. RC said, let's get to 50. We're actually at 55 at the moment. So this is awesome. But there were 2 other units that were presumably the same price. And they were the same size, same layout, but they didn't have the really nice window into the courtyard. And we got those as well. We got a deal and we took them all and turned it into a private apartment complex for ourselves. So Paul lived there, I had an office there, and we had 2 rooms that we turned into guest rooms. And it was really, really handy because whenever people would come and stay with us, instead of having them come to our house and stay in our house, we would just be like, hey, let's go back we'll just put you in over here. And they had these dedicated guest apartments that had their own bath that were designed to be little tiny student units. And it just worked really, really well. And so like Kat, when we did the episodes where Kat was staying with us in 2022, that's where she was living, is in one of these. The problem is we didn't have an easy way to, or we didn't want to invest in split units for that. So we put floor standing air conditioners in that, and that did not work. That is something, and Marcela spent quite a bit of time when she would stay back in because it's hard to believe that she was around in the 2022 episodes at the same time. But when she would stay over there, the same problem, the air conditioning was absolutely atrocious in the ones that didn't have the extra window in the split unit. So that made all of the difference. Now, if I was to do it today and it was me, I might not even need an air conditioner if I had one of the good ones with the good windows and a good fan. But yeah, things to consider. But that's kind of the price range of the ones I have encountered. In digital format, Marcela. Vin says, ¿puede explicar la comida de Nica? Es en español, es para ti.
¿Qué hora?
La comida de Nica.
No, tenemos un video de eso pronto.
We're going to have a video about that. We are going to have a video. No, es colombiana.
Oh, es cierto.
We're going to have a video about Colombian food in Nicaragua soon. Okay, food.
Tenemos a Aida.
Ayer o antes de ayer, una persona en el canal dijo, por favor, queremos ser Aida. Okay, we're gonna get Ida. So this was requested on a video recently, in the comments, that someone wanted to see Ida. She's been on the show before, but we talked about housekeepers, and we did a video about how you can afford housekeepers and what can make them make financial sense because it lowers your cost of living. So this is Ida, who actually makes our food here. Here she is.
Hola.
So they are getting ready to go out later.
¿Quieren saber sobre la comida nica?
Sí.
Por ejemplo, ¿de cuál podemos explicar?
No sé, por ejemplo, ¿cómo puedes categorigar, explicar comida de Nica, ¿qué es diferente? ¿Cuál es diferente? ¿Cuál es especial? The problem is when you haven't lived other places, it's just food.
Por ejemplo,
Cuando-
como el gallo pinto, ¿no?
Sí,
Que es
gallo
el que
pinto.
más común hacemos.
Gallo pinto is super important. It's super important because
Las repochetas.
Las
repocheta. So we did a
sí.
video with La Marcelita. It was about, so actually el video fue 2 semanas antes de tu enferma. Enferma? So about 2 weeks before she got sick, we were starting to do a series with Marcela, and she did one where she made repochetas. And that's a very, not just Nicaraguan, but Leonesa. Comida de León.
Sí.
Because repochetas are different in different cities and different countries. And here it's very much like a fried quesadilla for those
Pero
coming from...
Aida hace repochetas con gallo pinto.
Ajá.
Es diferente.
And
Y con
Sí.
queso,
¿Adentro?
Sí.
queso mozzarella.
queso mozzarella.
Sí, es gallo pinto con queso mozzarella
Oh.
y pico de gallo.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, so repochetas are like fried quesadillas. Quesadillas are fresca in the U.S. and Mexico. And here, they don't really do that. They do, but they're rare. Not rare, but less common. Repochetas are very much a Nicaraguan food, and they're very similar, but they're pan-fried. So they're crispy and very hot. And you eat them with ensalada, with salad. But salad here is really like tomatoes and onions and cilantro, not like lettuce and like we think in the north. And so you'll pile that on top. You can have crema with it. But she's saying that there's a special and considered different type where instead of local cheese, they're using mozzarella, and they add the gallo pinto, which is beans and rice and beans, into it, and then put pico de gallo on top. All right. Sorry, I have something that's making me cough, and I don't have enough water. So, Nicaraguan food, comida de Nica. I mean, there's a lot of specific items, a lot of mucho frito.
Sí.
Yeah, so very different than, so we talk about in the north that there's a lot of fried food. But when you come to Nicaragua, I think the absolute crazy amount of fried food in everyday life is really surprising. Fried fish, pescado frito,
El
pollo
pescado.
frito, every type of tortilla is fried. It's just...
Plátanos fritos.
Oh yes, plátanos or
Ya sea
plantains,
maduros o verdes.
right? Both sweet and green, which is like savory. What you would replace, for example, potato chips with it. They'll fry yuca. They fry potatoes, obviously. Basically, anything you can imagine frying is a normal food. There's just all the time. There is fried food. And one of the most common ways to get food here, if you're not cooking at home, is to go to a home cooking place. And to us, we think of it as foreigners. We think of it as a home cooking style restaurant, but its name, el nombre is Fritanga.
La
And it's
Fritanga.
La Fritanga, and it's a place of fried food. So the entire thing, other than gallo pinto, todo is frito.
Sí, todo es frito, como tacos, enchiladas.
Right. So things that we have as foods in Mexican and Tex-Mex, tacos, enchiladas, and so forth, those to us
Queso,
are
el queso.
right, just cheese. They just fry cheese as a really normal thing. So it's queso frito is the name, and it's not battered. It's not like mozzarella sticks. It's a block of cheese, not huge, right? Like a little, like it's a thin slice. It's about this big, and they'll just pan fry it until the cheese itself caramelizes. And then the tacos, they actually take what's something similar to a taco in Mexican cuisine, a little bit bigger, wrap it a bit more, and then deep fry it. And then they have enchiladas, which are deep fried. And so all of these foods that we think of as being fresh or not fried is fried here with the same name, and it throws you off a lot. So if you go to La Fritanga, it's just this huge amount of different fried foods all in one place. And so it's like if you were going to make the closest thing you can in English, we would call it a fryeria, right? A fried restaurant. Oh, es tiempo para...
Sí,
Ya nos vamos.
Él no puede venir aquí? O...
No,
ok.
porque la medicina está en la casa.
Ok.
Tenemos que ir.
Pues, muchas gracias para...
Sí. No, gracias a todos.
La Marcelita has to go. She is actually getting a intravenous treatment. She has an IV that has to be given, and her nurse is on the way. So this is actually one of the things we've talked about, is how easy it is and how prevalent it is to get in-home health care. Now, the thing that she's getting could be done without a nurse. You're allowed to do it on your own, but unless you're doing it for a long time, just shoving a needle in yourself is not something you really want to learn how to do. And so for these situations, having this is the same nurse for those who followed when I had my knee treatments, and we didn't announce it at the time because we didn't know what was going on. I was at the hospital with her when she was getting her oncology appointment, but I was waiting outside, and it was while waiting outside and unrelated to the fact that she was at a hospital that I fell over and hurt my knee. But the nurse that we the nurse had initially been the one that took her to the hospital in the ambulance. That's how we found the nurse that we wanted to use. That nurse then came and treated me with the knee, and now he is treating her with her IV treatments that she needs at home. But her medicine is at home, not here, so she needs to go home and meet up with her nurse because she has a treatment right now. Okay.
Gracias.
Gracias también. Buenas noches.
All right. Buenas noches. They're both gonna leave.
Moncho, mañana hablamos.
Okay. Buenas noches,
Buenas
chicas.
noches.
Nos
Pienso
vemos.
que esto puede quedar aquí para trabajar mañana.
Quizás y quiero mover la silla porque okay. All right. Gracias. All right, I'm gonna get in the middle now. Oh, Aida, lo siento. Más agua, por favor. Gracias. Adiós.
Bye.
Okay, so they are heading out. Sorry that we had to cut that short, but she needs to get to that treatment. Really, food of Nicaragua is very hard for me to categorize because so much of it is meat, and this is true nearly anywhere, so that's not really itself a categorization. But I am a pescatarian, and so my ability to give you a broad spectrum of Nicaraguan food is very difficult. But very important to understand that one of the things about Nicaraguan food is that there's the actual quality of food is quite high, but the variety of food is extremely low. So there are multiple different common Nicaraguan foods, and there is some variety within their diet. But within the categories of each thing, it gets very low. So ceviche is a thing that is very local and very common, and people will eat everywhere. Gracias. But it's everywhere in the country will have this, right? You don't go to one region and get one thing in one region and get another. Oh, sorry, I'm seriously dehydrated today. We are, for those who are wondering why it looks different today, we are on the Suri 16 millimeter. So it's a little bit wider than we normally have. And thank you for we did see donations come in this evening while we're on the live stream as well. All right, so you have a lot more. This is like you can actually see my office a bit because I had to move things to make this camera work. But it's a completely different look. This is kind of cool. I shouldn't have worn a black T-shirt though because it's kind of like my head is floating. Now you're gonna see it. His floating head is going on. I'm missing a few things. Ooh, a lot of stuff has flown by. I meant to say sing. Okay. Rental units for $100. Food. About how much is a fridge? Stainless steel or black? And how much is a stovetop with oven electric? Does it have to be gas? So basically it has to be gas. That's not 100% true. Especially like student units will be electric, but you want gas, right? So this is one of those areas where if you have lots of money, but then you're probably not going to ask this question. You want to adapt to Nicaragua, right? And some of the things that Nicaraguans do is they don't worry about what their kitchen looks like, right? They get what's practical and they don't get what looks cool for the most part. So going for very specific, like, okay, stainless steel is easy to get. Like, that's very generic. Black, you never see here. Specific colors, it's really not a thing that Nicaraguans worry about. So that's a North Americanism that is fine, doesn't hurt anybody, but you're going to get into a premium cost if you start trying to design a kitchen based on looks in many cases. And what is driving you to want electric? So here, electric, quite expensive and very rare. Gas, really common and expected and cheap. So these are things that will, and not just that the electric appliances will cost more, that probably true. It's that electric here is generally a high cost. So you don't want to do things that will generate more electricity or generate the need for more electricity. You want to avoid that for the most part. So there's exceptions, right? And we've talked about this. What if you get into a place that has a fixed price on your electric? Well, then having electric is super smart, but you rarely can you predict that. So you would have to get into a place, determine that after a while, and be like, okay, this looks like something that's going to stick around for a while. Now I'm going to invest in electric things instead of gas things. And then when you move, you'll be sorry because you won't still have that, or so forth. So I've never met anyone who wanted to do that before. It's one of those places where adapting to what is normal here from a financial perspective will help a lot. If you have lots of money, meaning plenty that it doesn't matter and you're willing to pay a premium for a black fridge, for example, and say, well, what's $500 extra for a fridge? If you can say, what's $500 extra for a fridge if it gets to be black, then by all means, yes, you'll be able to track one down or special order one. And case in point, I'm totally going to spend extra to get my white cameras, right? I love my white cameras and my white coffee mug and my other white coffee mug right there, my other white camera and my white lenses that you can see hanging out in different places, right? So clearly I'm willing to go out of my way to get orange and white things all over the place. So I get you, right? But be aware, like me, that I know I am case in point, you can't really see it because there's a green cover on it. Let's see if we can take it off while we're talking. Sorry for the incredible noise that must be happening. Oh, it is totally stuck. It's been on there for too long on this thing. It's a white microphone. This is just a pop cover. And I've got an orange one on the boat coming. So I have to very carefully put this back. Sorry for all the noise, but I had to show it. So I like these things. I'm totally on board with you like what you like and you're going to pay for it. But just be aware that it's an area where you're going to create a premium cost when you could avoid that. You could go the Nika way and just make everything cheap, and you'll really save a lot of money. In general, what we have said is most things in Nicaragua, like appliances, cost about 10% more than they would cost in the United States. TVs notwithstanding, they're going to be more. However, that was before the tariff war was going on. Now the United States is jacking prices on everything really quickly, and the rest of the world is not. So there's every possibility. So if you're getting products from the United States, they will still be about 10% more than the U.S. because someone's got to buy them in the U.S. and then ship them here. But the new thing that's happening now, and I haven't been buying appliances since this started, so I can't speak to it yet, is that if you're getting appliances coming directly from China especially, the shipping is cheaper than it's ever been, and the appliances are the normal price, but in the U.S., appliances are 25% higher than they used to be. So you may easily get appliances for 20% less than in the U.S. now if you are shopping around and getting good Chinese products. And one of the things that you really want to consider here is getting Chinese products because a lot of the best stuff actually comes from China. It is very American to look down on Chinese products because the U.S. just is such a don't buy Chinese. They're so scared of Chinese manufacturing. But the reality is that a lot of the best stuff in the world, iPhones, right? All the best cell phones are made in China. Most of the best cars are made in China. The most reliable stuff comes from China. The best white products, the best sinks and toilets and shower heads and all that stuff, they come from China. And so if you're avoiding those things, you're going to pay a premium and get mostly junk. And if you are not avoiding those and actually go look for them, you'll often get deals because they cost less to ship and they cost less to make. And there's no tariff here on them. And if you're careful with what you buy, obviously there's a ton of Chinese junk out there because they manufacture everything. But also the best stuff comes from there. So you can get really high quality things at reasonable prices if you shop around. So if you want to go fancy, you can without breaking the bank. But it does require some amount of work. Someone on the San Juan del Sur group said that they sell swamp coolers. I'm just going to say yes. I've seen swamp coolers at PriceSmart for sale, and loads of restaurants use them. We are on the live stream discussing this as I type it. Just grab that live stream link so we can pop it in there. All right, so fridge, just base it off the prices here, right? But quite often we figure you're going to spend around $1,000, $1,100 on a fridge, but clearly you can spend quite a bit less. What is the name of the new highway to be built? I'd love to know where it runs through. Everyone's obsessed with the highway. Honestly, the highway, so first of all, it's a decade away. Nobody knows exactly where it's going to go yet. I don't think all the engineering studies are done yet. It's called the Constanera, which is just the coastal, right? But it's the Pacific Coast Highway in English, and it's going to be a big deal when it's done. But the exact spot is unknown. That is completely a secret. Even government officials don't really know. So, yeah, and it's so far away. Now, their construction is underway. It's happening. But it is a very long-term project. Luke says, PriceSmart equals U.S. prices and selections. You can buy for less, buy used. Gas is common. Electric is available. Indigital says, how much is diesel? Off the top of my head, I don't know, but the prices are government prices, so you can look them up at any given time. Someone will probably pop in and put it the official price. But there's just one price. Everybody pays the same price. Tao says, I'm a drone pilot, videographer, musician. I'm concerned with bringing my minimalized equipment and also opportunities to use my skills there. Is there any advice you may have? Drones are beyond illegal here. They're not just illegal like they used to be. It's now illegal to have tried to bring one in, which is a bit different because it used to be... that's Ty that's answering. That was in the San Juan del Sur group. So if you want to have a drone and you're going to be in San Juan del Sur, for example, you would keep the drone in Costa Rica and only use it while you're in Costa Rica or south. If you are like me and live near the Honduran border, you would keep it in Honduras or El Salvador and cross the border and grab it when you're there. Now that I have a car that has insurance and can drive into Honduras without a problem, video on all that coming, I'm very seriously going to consider keeping a drone in Choluteca because it's so easy to get to in Honduras. Just drive over the border, pick up my drone, and then I can go hang out in all of Central America that is in Nicaragua and fly my drone around. Since I work in Belize, there's a lot of opportunity to drive from here all the way to Belize and go through those countries and take lots of different roads to do a lot of cool things because there's so much beautiful stuff, so much stuff that hasn't been filmed, so much stuff that's lightly filmed, so much stuff that people are afraid of up there, and I really want to be able to just drive around and be like, let's go see Central America, let's like get all this like on the show and really do some amazing things, and I want to have a drone for that. I would love to have a drone here, obviously, but can't. Now for everything else, right? Separate drones from everything else. Your drone is off the table. Like there's, and no matter what someone has told you, right? Yeah, you can smuggle one in. I'm not telling you it's a good idea. If you get caught, you're screwed, right? This is not like it used to be. There's a ton of people who smuggled them in the past, and everyone reports, hey, you know, I got my drone in, cool, I got my videos. Yeah, it used to be if you got caught with a drone, they would take the drone. Now, if you get caught with a drone, you're going to jail. Right, and it used to be, you know, if you got caught smuggling it in, they would take it away. But if it's Now it's even if you leave the country with a drone, if they catch that you've had a drone, you're in trouble, right? It's not just that they're illegal to bring in, they're illegal to have had. So people who have them in country are required by law to turn them in, which was not the case before. Before it was, well, you got it in, just hide it. You're not allowed to operate it, but you can hide it. That is no longer the case. You are now illegal if you have possession of a drone. Now, you might smuggle it out. It's easier to smuggle it out than in, but that's the situation you're in. Still, lots of people are out there flying them and taking their chances. But I can tell you, I flew a drone. No, I did not fly a drone. Someone flew a drone for me and provided me footage. And by having footage on my channel, had a whole bunch of people questioning stuff. So even using stock footage from places, I did not use stock footage in this case. I did use custom footage from a business that owns drones. And they just provided it to me because I was at a spot where they had drones, right? Like I was filming normal stuff with cameras on trucks, and they're like, oh, we have some footage you can use to mix in, which is fine. I'm totally allowed to use that. They're not allowed to have taken it, right? But if you're a normal everyday business, people traditionally haven't been caught that much. You're flying it on your own land. What's the big deal? But if you're in a social media circle and you're out and you're flying a drone, you're really gonna have a bad day in most cases. Jan says, I've got a big white Toyota truck. Not sure what that was. That in the diesel conversation? James says, hello, Scott and Marcela from Fundy. Old truck in Canada. It's a snowbank beater. What type of beater is called in Nicaragua? I don't know if we really have a term for that. That would have been a good question for Marcela before she left. Sorry, we got behind. Tao says, we have an online business, so I'm not banking on working there, but freelancing is something I offer by trade. Cool. Luke says, no drones allowed. I bought a Korg synth with me on the plane. Had to pay Adwana 150 in tax. It can happen. As far as opportunities to use your skills, not allowed to work. Right. Got to do, things for yourself. Fine, obviously. Things that you do online for outside the country, no problem. But then you're not working in Nicaragua. But working here, not an option. Luke says, no, we already said that. James says, what type of lifespan would a 1,500 to 1,600 pension afford? What type of lifestyle, not lifespan. Sorry, that was unnecessarily morbid. Well, James, at $1,500 a month, you will make it for 6 months, and then you will die. So $1,500 to $1,600 pension for a single person. It's going to be tight for sure, right? But the biggest cost is always food. So we looked at the budget recently for a family of 4, and the question was, how would they live at $3,500? Would it be comfy? And you can make it comfy, and you can make 16 is, at $1,600, every penny matters, right? An extra $5 is another meal, right? And so, or another meal out, or another couple beers, right? Things that you notice within the span of a month. Reasonably, James, you might want to consider a nice apartment like the one that I have, $180, right? That's over 10% of your budget, but it's not 20% of your budget. It's not even 15. I love the place, right? Super comfy, plenty of room. I can entertain. I'm not going to throw huge parties or anything, but I've got a little porch where a couple people can sit. I've got a spot where I can park a vehicle if I want. I don't normally park one there. It's too much of a pain. I just park on the street, but I could. I've got the little tiny backyard. It's not great for dogs, but if you have a cat, it'll be fine. Good for doing your laundry. It's got space for a TV. We have a TV, right? We put a TV on the wall. We put in a small couch. It has a built-in breakfast bar, real small, enough for 3 stools. And it's got a small kitchen, which for a single person, tons of space to cook. So that's $180. We then spend probably $35 on internet. Traditionally, the power has been $10 a month, even with air conditioning. And that was when Marcela was living there with her kids. They would still be $10, $11 per month. I'm told it's gone up. I have not seen the bill since it's gone up, so expect it to be more. But that's real world. This is what our prices were for her with 2 kids, living in a place, 2 air conditioning units. Full size fridge, toaster oven, range top, like basic stuff, and a washing machine. So that's $190, $225. Basically, figure about $250 is going to get you through those basics. And then that leaves about $1,250 for your other things, trying to be a little bit conservative. Transportation. Where that particular place is, again, we lucked out, but it's in a premium neighborhood. Not like, whoa, fancy. You're not going to walk into it and be like, this is the neighborhood. I can't believe it. No, it is a real barrio neighborhood, but it's one next to a bunch of schools. So it's loaded with teachers and professors and people who work at the schools. It's a very preferred neighborhood. It's quite safe, but it is a barrio. Pulperia across the street, but small houses nearby with people who have decently nice cars, right? Upgraded cars, not base models, but people who have the more expensive ones. For example, instead of driving a Toyota Corolla like poor people like me do, they have the Corolla Cross or whatever it is, the one that's like $10,000 more, but the same size. Like it's that much fancier, and people just pay that extra, right? So that kind of neighborhood. We're not talking Ferraris here. We're talking nicer Toyotas. But in a country like Nicaragua, that's a big deal. So you notice when neighborhoods are like that. Close to things. But from there, what's really interesting is you can get to the beach, you walk out, and if you just walk, it's like 1 block off the main road. If you walk to the main road, and the city bus is there, so you can walk out and catch the city bus. It's something like 15 to 20 cents to take you all the way into downtown. You could walk if you really wanted, but it'd be a very long walk. At night, I will do it alone when I'm drunk, when I'm just like, I just want to walk home, and I'll just stumble home from downtown, and it's not that bad for me. I'm a long walker, and when the sun's down, it's no problem at all. For most people, the walk is too long, and it would be super hot under most conditions that you'd be doing it, and most people would be uncomfortable walking the entire western half of the city drunk alone. But I don't care. So that's things to consider. But a bus, 20 cents, and you can be downtown in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So that's a lot of like accessibility into the city from really nice, comfy buses right there. If you walk 2 blocks, you actually get to the bus terminal for the one bus that goes the other way to the beach. And that one's like 25 cents, 30 cents, something like that. Takes you all the way to Ponaloya and Las Piñitas beaches and drops you off at a number of different spots. So for under $1, way under $1, you can do a round trip either into the city and around the city or out to the beaches. 2 separate bus systems, but all right there. Plus, your walking distance to a pulperia for sure. Reasonably, you could walk to a pali, which is a small supermarket. That would be a long walk, but walkable. As a single person, getting a single person's amount of groceries, as long as you did it more than once a week, probably fine, based on the amount you'd want to carry. You are able to walk to one of the big markets of the city. Not the biggest, it's called the Little Market, but it's one of the real markets. So tons of fresh fruit, fresh veg, that kind of stuff. You could take the bus, or much more reasonable, like a real walk, but a very reasonable one would get you, well, a very short walk would get you to the cathedral, not the main cathedral, the secondary one. The outdoor food court, which I need to go film sometime. We've shown it, but we've never really shown it at night with people going there to eat. So that would be good to see. A lot of we don't do that is because it's all meat, so there's nothing for me. And there's very little that Marcela likes to eat there because she's the one that I take and do those kinds of things. So I need to find someone who really wants to go eat that food and find a couple girls that want to go and film them eating food there. And then we'll make a nice video because they've got burgers and hot dogs and pizza and chicken and like all these little, it's like a fast food court kind of thing, but they're little tiny food trucks in the Nicaraguan tradition near a church, right? So like if you're willing to eat any of that kind of food, loads of it at super cheap prices. Then a little bit farther, and the street has a number of things. A little bit farther is the row of the pharmacies. That's all within walking distance. Some of it's short, some of it's a long walk, but it's a really accessible area. Now, again, this is an area that we chose after living here for a while and felt it was really practical, but it's also really practical because it's very close to where we live, where I am right now. And so, and it was such a great area that when we were looking at it, that is when Marcela decided she wanted to live there. So she has a house in that same neighborhood. That's where she lives. So everything I'm describing is what her day-to-day life is like. Her house is a 3-bedroom. It is a little bit more expensive, but truly just a little bit more expensive than the apartment we're talking about. She has more private space, more personal space, more rooms, obviously, bigger living room, a dining room. We don't have that in ours. And hers is a house, not an apartment. But she's right, like her neighbor across the street has one of those nice cars, right? So that's the neighborhood that she lives in. So this is a real place that real Nicaraguans that we really know and really have been to their house in the last 3 hours all have. Right, so this is a thing you could have if you shop around and you like the style, you would be in really great shape. So that's a potential lifestyle, and then the food in the kinds of places that I'm describing are very, very inexpensive. If you're getting a hot dog at one of those hot dog stands or a hamburger or pizza, those things are very cheap. There are plenty of asada and fritanga places up and down that strip where you could theoretically come, if you're like me and the amount that I eat, which doesn't look it, but I might come away at $3 or $4 as enough for a dinner at one of those places. Now, a lot of those places you'd be much more like $8 to $9. So you want to, be careful because at the budget you have, if you're going to spend, but let's say you're going to average $30 per day. Well, that's $900 in a month. Add that to your $250, you're only up to $1150 on one hand, but that's $1150 overall. That's a lot. But $30 per day for food should be on the high side. If you're like me, I don't eat 3 meals a day, so that would be 2 meals at 15, not 3 at 10. But of course, you want snacks and you need a beer and that kind of stuff. So, gauge appropriately. But for a single person, quite often. Well, here's a great example. We went out, same place I went for my one meal today. And this is a great example. I had one meal today. Let me see if I can come up with what we spent. I believe we spent $1,000. We over-tipped because it was a round number. We could have gotten away for 900 cord. Let me do this math. So this is me and Julian, my driver, my chauffeur. We were out and had to get dinner together because we were working together all day. Just absolutely obnoxious. And for the two of us, we went out and got drinks, not alcohol. Like he got like soda, I got a fresh fruit drink. But so we weren't drinking water. We got caprese salad, which is not a local thing here, right? So it's a slightly premium thing. He got lasagna, which is not a cheap pasta dish as pasta dishes go. And I got a pizza, like a good sized pizza. I ate half of it and brought the other half home for my children. Half. Right, so if I'm only eating half a pizza, it's a fair-sized pizza. So for the two of us together, 2 drinks, a lasagna, a pizza, and a caprese salad that we split, and then I brought half a pizza home for my children. The total after tax and tip was $24.33. So obviously, that's not a super cheap meal, and that is a place that we generally consider to be rather affordable. It was also a fancy, really nice Italian restaurant. It is currently the nicest Italian restaurant in Leon. There is a nicer one in the Leon area. That's Puesta del Sol on the beach. They're the best in Western Nicaragua, I'm sure. But this place is easily the best in the city of Leon. I don't know anyone who competes with it in any way whatsoever. It is fantastic. So for us to be at 12, let's just say $13 per person, and it was definitely not $13. It's much closer to 12. That's really good. So as a gauge, yeah, there'll be days you want to go fancier places. You're going to want to go to Barbaro. You're not going to get out of there for $12, not if you're getting a drink, right? You're going to be spending 15, much more likely. But you're probably not going to go to Barbaro most nights. But even if you did that, right, if you went to one of these restaurants and dropped $15, you still have $15 for the rest of the day, whether that's groceries and you're going to cook at home or go and get another meal or whatever. You can go on Pedidos Ja if you're in the area that I mentioned. Totally are within the delivery zone. You're closer to it than I am here, and I still get delivery here. So you could order in food. That generally is going to be a price premium. But if you're good with leftovers, if you're cooking some amount on your own, if you're willing to eat some meals at a fritanga, you're willing to eat some meals at an asada, you're willing to eat some amount of street food, you're going to get those averages down, and you're easily going to have a few times a month that you can be like, I am going to Barbaro, and I am getting the salmon, and I am getting an old-fashioned cocktail to go with it, right? And it won't be a problem. It'll be within your budget of that 900 that I'm talking about. I think I feel you'll be able to be within that budget without too much of a problem. You'll want to pay attention to understanding what exactly you're spending your money on a little bit, but that's about it. And then your transportation, that's going to be some. Do you want to really go out and explore the countryside? Do you want to stay in hostels or stay in hotels on a regular basis? Obviously, those things are going to eat budget really quickly. Now, if you are really doing your research and knowing what you're doing, if I'm going into Managua and I'm like, I want to stay someplace fancy, I don't want to think twice about it, yeah, I'm going to go stay at the DoubleTree and I'm going to drop $105, which is not outrageous, but it's certainly not Nicaraguan prices. But I could stay in the same neighborhood at a place that's very nice with a little bit of research. I could probably stay for 25. I could definitely stay for 30, and still be air conditioned, still be really safe, still be in a beautiful neighborhood, and have some amenities that the DoubleTree doesn't have. Also, not have all the amenities that the DoubleTree does. So there's a trade-off. But you can, even in Managua, in super luxurious neighborhoods, stay for $30 or less. And if you're willing to stay in, more normal neighborhoods, getting closer to $20. Getting below 20 would be pretty tough. But if you want to stay at 20, we're talking hotels, not hostels in a lot of cases, or things that feel like hotels in that price range. You'd still be able to do that stuff, but it's going to eat into your budgets. You're really going to want to think about, okay, that's where money could disappear very quickly, is once I start wanting to do trips and things. But of course, if you have a friend and you want to go and you're able to share a room or something, that cuts that cost per person quite dramatically. Of course, you're going to want to buy clothes, you're going to want to do shopping and stuff, so you want to have some amount of budget set aside for those things. There's always the unknowns. There's the $12 a month you're going to want to spend on your cell phone. You need to save up money every so often to buy a new cell phone itself, of course. You want to have a computer, you want to have a TV. So you're going to want to put in a little bit of money to have those things. But if you have a little bit of a nest egg, and we're talking a small amount of money, right? When you move into the country, to buy a TV, to buy a couch, to buy your appliances, and get an unfurnished apartment like me at 180, you may be in really good shape to be able to be like, really enjoy what you're doing quite comfortably. And one of the things that is very easy to encourage yourself is to go out every night and party. And of course, if you can afford it, it is very cheap to do so. If you want to go to a dive, like a local dive bar, you could pretty easily go out and drop way less than $10 and have a nice night, right? Get some amount of food for, I don't know, $3 to $5 and a few beers. And quite often they have live music or karaoke or something else. And you could easily go and have a good time and hang out with people and meet people and be social. Maybe they have a TV with a game on. Maybe they've got the music, whatever, maybe both. That happens. You'll be able to do that stuff, especially in the barrios. If you go into the city center, then it gets a little bit more expensive, but still quite affordable. And people who've been out with us to like Via Via, which we'll be going to tomorrow night. So people who want to meet groups of us, go to Via Via. I'm normally really close to the front door. Also, be aware, when I first get to Via Via, I am setting up to do videos. I am extremely busy. I have a lot of equipment and work I have to do. I'm actually working when I'm there. So, and Marcela is normally there. I think she'll be there tomorrow. And a lot of our crew is there. So there's a lot of people to meet and a lot of cool, but be aware, I'm not there to drink. I am there to work. And there's a tendency to like gang up on me as I'm trying to work. And I don't mean to be rude, but I have concerts to record and I need to get that stuff working. Then I will have more time, but it'll be loud. So it is a tough time to like hang out with me, which I apologize for how hard that is, but it is a chance to kind of meet up with people and a really good place to go out. But people will tell you quite often you can go out to Via Via and spend the whole night. Like if I'm going out and I'm not trying to be frugal, I'm making no effort not to spend money, like literally no effort whatsoever. But even if I'm drinking, which quite often I'm not, I'll just be like, I'll have 2 Cokes throughout the night because I've got to drive. So whatever. I'll often get like a big plate of French fries or a quesadilla or something of that nature and get, a couple beers if I'm not driving. The total for a person is rarely $10. And if I didn't want to eat there, it might be $4, right? We're not talking a lot of money, but we can go out and get there at, say, 8:30, 9 o'clock, and we stay until midnight, which isn't a huge amount of time. That's several hours. That's a night out, seeing people going, and you could do a little dancing. You get to do a little drinking. You hear a band. Like, it's fun. It's a cool thing. And you've spent a few dollars. And that's entertainment and all that. But if you're going to stay home on an evening, right, and you're going to watch some Netflix, you're going to watch whatever, you got a TV, you want to read a book, you want to listen to music at home, you want to do something on your computer, you want to do a live stream, whatever, you very easily could end up spending extremely little. I mean, I will often make dinner for, I don't know, $2, right? If I'm doing like, I mean, I'll have a dinner of grilled cheese and think nothing of it, right? And just be like, yeah, this is a nice dinner. 2 grilled cheese sandwiches, 4 pieces of bread, a little bit of butter, maybe a lot of butter, and 4 pieces of, and I use Nicaraguan made American sliced cheese, which is the cheapest one. It just happens to be the best one. We tried them all. My kids all, like, we all said, no, this is the best sliced American cheese. It's very cheap. And so all it takes is a few nights or a few days where you're like, I'm not going to go out. Maybe you'll go to the local bar, have 1 or 2 beers, which basically doesn't hit your budget at all. But a few nights of being like really chill about that. And then you've got the budget to go out and have a couple really nice nights out where you're going for like some nice meals or whatever. So it really is a bit of flexibility there as long as you don't want to party nonstop. In most cases, or unless you have some bills somewhere that we're not expecting. Now, of course, healthcare is a thing, right? You're generally going to spend some money on healthcare one way or another, but you know, there is public healthcare for most things. The private healthcare, yeah, you're going to want to have some money set aside in case you want to use the private healthcare. Absolutely, right. So you got to budget that in. Everyone has a completely different budget on that, but that's its own thing. Drone, Big White, hello. Online business, wait. Okay, no drones. Oh, that's the Aduana thing. There we go. James says, Luke, how are you finding the weather up in Matagalpa? Renee says, is there ambulance service? Yes, absolutely. Ambulances everywhere, just like normal, like anywhere else. Luke says, daytime is still hot when in the sun, cool in the shade. Nighttime is incredible. Tao says, Luke, I was looking into it, and I saw you had to register drones with the Department of Ministry. Is that just a trap? It's not a trap. It's not a thing. You cannot have a drone, period. End of story. There is zero, absolute zero allowance for having a drone. No one can have one. If you register one, they'll just tell you, that doesn't matter. Like, you're allowed to register it, but you're not allowed to bring it into the country regardless of the registry. So there's no, and you know, it is what it is. And when you say you looked into it and saw you had to register, what Nicaraguan government website has that? Like, I don't even know what Department of Ministry is. Yemi says, Scott, you really sell Nicaragua to me so well. I really wish the heat wasn't an issue for me. I noticed Scott Moore seemed to have a hard time in Matagalpa, yet that seems to be the coolest town in Nicaragua. It's not quite. Jinotega is the coolest large city in the country, but Matagalpa is the next coolest. So it's pretty close. Nicaragua is a hot country. There is no getting around it. Scott did have a hard time. Some people do not adapt well to heat. Some people don't give it enough time. Scott did. Scott gave it plenty of time, and his wife is Nicaraguan. So he really did give it a shake and just found that the heat was pretty much for him. For me, Matagalpa is absolutely beautiful. If I could live there now, I would be so comfortable. I'd be in jeans and long sleeve shirts all the time, walking everywhere, no problems whatsoever. It would be really fantastic. Oh, okay. And so I've been here long enough to mostly adapt. Although, like today, I was dying. Right, we were outside in the sun the entire day. It was rough, for real. And I'm so glad. I was tempted to wear jeans this morning, and I'm like, you know what? No, it's a heat wave. The government has a warning about the heat wave. If anyone says something about that, I'm not wearing jeans. I'm going to show them the official government heat warning thing. Just be like, look, guys, the federal government says that this is dangerous, so I'm taking precautions. And they'd be like, okay. But no one said a thing. I was dying. But under normal circumstances, I'm out there in a shirt. I've got another shirt on. I got a hat on. Yeah, I get a little bit, sweaty. It happens. But here I've got the AC is set to 79, which I do turn it quite cold for the show. But, I feel good. It's very comfortable. I go out at night, completely comfortable. Don't think about it. After a while, even here in the hottest part of the country, we adapted, and we didn't think we would. We're not from hot places. We thought this would be really hard, and the first year was. It really was. But after that, it really changed. Like, our bodies really got used to it, and partially it's adapting your lifestyle around the heat, but much of it is adapting yourself, which you just do by, existing and letting it be. But it's shocking how many people adapt. The number of people who really struggle, like Scott, is not the norm. For people who gave it as long as he did, most people handle it without a problem, or without much problem, and especially in Matagalpa. So it's an extreme case that he was that affected by the heat. Now, a lot of people just prefer it cooler and prioritize that above many other things, so that's fine. One of the reasons that people like Nicaragua, some people really prioritize the excessive amount of personal freedoms that we get. Some people really prioritize the ease at which you can live here. Some people really prioritize the small amount of extra cheap it is here compared to our neighboring countries, right? We are cheaper than Guatemala, for example, but not much cheaper, really small amounts cheaper. But for some people, that's really important. So, okay, that would drive you here. There's a lot of things about Nicaragua that may make this the place you want to be rather than somewhere else. And the biggest one, of course, is going to be culture, which we can't really describe very well, right? It's just a vibe that you get. It's just a feeling that you get. But for him, and absolutely fine, the temperature was a much more important thing than many of those other things, which for me, just the temperature just isn't that big of a deal. Is it hot? Absolutely. It's hot for me like it is for everyone else. But is it a reason to consider not living here? No, not for me. Doesn't, growing up in New York, the idea that I would come to a tropical country and not be just completely destroyed by the heat never occurred to me. It seemed like an impossibility. I would never have really considered coming to this region because the weather was going to be too hot. And now that I'm here, I'm like, why was I concerned about that? Like, come on, this is great. Like, I actually enjoy the heat for the most part. I don't want to turn it. My wife does not like having open air in the cars, but I don't even turn on the air conditioning in the car. And neither does my chauffeur. We're just, and a bunch of, like our friend April's here, right? We just put down the windows and drive, and we love the fresh air. It's not hot to us. It's just warm. Whereas, if you're working and you need the air conditioning, it's different. But, and even my office, I air condition it not the majority of the time. So I would say Jinotega is the place to start, or to really consider. You do notice how much cooler it is. But the nice thing down here is that our hot temperatures are incredibly stable. So it is. Do you know anyone who brought dogs anyone from the U.S. who brought dogs there to Nicaragua? Actually, a lot. So the ones I know best are me. We flew ours. That was one of our big things, is that our babies were not just our babies and definitely going to come with us, but also they were rescues who had a lot of issues. So they could not be crated or anything, so we had to use private flights to get them here. But we know loads of people who've brought animals here. The number of people who move with animals, I'm really impressed by how often that happens. It's a regular topic, and we see people with dogs, mostly dogs, all the time. And it's like, yep, these are American dogs that came down with us. And you're like, wow, this is really a common thing. When we did it, like, nobody had done it. It was very much pioneering at the time. I just heard someone scream outside, but I can't even begin to imagine whose voice that was. And Tao said, we were bringing a dog and 2 cats ourselves. Jan said 57, but I don't know what that's a reference to. Gypsy Traveler says, what does $300 a month buy? I assume that means in reference to a home. So I'll assume it means home, and we'll go from there. So a barrio house, 3-bedroom, 1 bath, and definitely a barrio house, right? We're not talking something fancy. We're definitely talking, you will walk in and go, okay, Nicaraguan barrio, okay, I get it, which is very hard to describe, but you'll know it when you see it. When you live here, you'll very quickly be like, okay, I get this now. And it's not necessarily bad, but it is a different style. In digital, just notice that I have merch. Yes, we don't have merch for sale, but we do have merch, and it's people wear it all over the city. We see these shirts out and about all the time. Like, seriously, constantly we see people out and about in these shirts. So it's pretty cool, and we're trying to get more because they're actually quite popular. Not just because people like my show, but people like the design of the shirts and stuff. So we want to get more of them out there and really get people wearing them and get awareness up. So this is. I mean, I've had this shirt for 2 years, and this is Marcela made these, not herself. She had them made, and we also have hats and a couple different style of shirts. And so you'll see Marcela and her kids in them all the time. You'll see my wife in them all the time. My driver only wears my shirts. He's like, this is my favorite design. I wear it for everything. So we had shots from dinner tonight, and he's out there wearing my shirt. So yeah, they're pretty cool. We want to get tons more of them. It really is one of my favorite things going around, obviously, and just seeing people in my shirts. And we're trying to get the logo out there. This is the El Guaguense logo for us. So it's yeah, we do have merch. So $300 a month, you're in kind of an in-between zone. You'll get pretty nice barrio places. For me, the shopping around that I have done has shown that 0 to 350, you're really in Nicaraguan housing. Like, it feels like Nicaragua. It's small. Your designs are very different than you would find in North America. Potentially quite comfortable, potentially quite nice, potentially exactly what you want. But normally below 300 or below 350, you're not going to get something that would give you a really strong feeling like you were still in North America. You can get more American feeling for cheaper in Costa Rica, believe it or not. Here we get more for the money, but we don't get more of that particular style for the money. At $350, that is the cheapest that I have found a place that I walk into and go, oh, it doesn't quite look like something I'd see in North America, but it's also not shocking to a North American. It's very in between, right? And that was at $350 in a gated community that I really like, in a good part of the city, great neighbors, big yard, three good-sized bedrooms, I believe 2 bath, real kitchen, like separate kitchen, separate living room, separate dining room, huge yard, utility room, gated yard, like private enclosed yard with like great for multiple dogs running around like maniacs. You could throw big parties out in the yard, a good fete outside, whatever. And then inside a gated community itself. So private community with a private yard inside of it. $350 is the last time I saw one of those. And I was like, wow, I would be super happy with that house, right? It's not big enough for my family. We have a 9-bedroom, but if I could get by with 3 bedrooms, it was a great house. I still wish I had that house, right? And for a lot of practical reasons, I should have just gotten it at the time, because I think it's rented now. But I love the spot that it is. I love its whole space. So that's kind of, if you really work hard, you might be able to find something like that for $300 or negotiate someone down. But I think at $300, you're looking at much upgraded barrio places, because like the 3-bedroom, 1 bath around $200, that's 50% more. And in reality, now that I'm thinking about it, in that same gated community, we had someone from our show, like one of the viewers, managed to rent a definitely not as nice a house, but 3 bedrooms, had a courtyard on a less desirable street, definitely a less attractive house, did not have the big gated yard. It was more like just a house, whereas that one, you were paying a premium for that giant yard. And had an interior garage, like you pulled a car into the living room, very common here. Good sized living room, separate kitchen. It was a pretty decent place. Nothing to knock your socks off, but a real 3-bedroom with interesting spaces, and they were paying $250. So that's, $300, you have some flexibility, but you'll need to be accommodating that it's not going to be North American style, but pretty much once you are okay with that, $300 should give you enough to have a lot of options of very different styles in very different neighborhoods, and really get to pick and choose. Gigi says, is there a lot of stray cats and dogs? More than you could possibly imagine. There are so many stray cats and dogs. It is a huge thing. Jillian from the channel is running a stray cat and dog spay and neuter program right as we speak down on the beach. It's a huge issue. We need more people to adopt stray cats and dogs, and to help out with that stuff for sure. What about the more uppity areas of Managua? Are you in reference to stray cats and dogs? Definitely in the more uppity areas, you get fewer of them. The strays tend to be in the denser populations, and the uppity areas tend to have lots of walls and people with estates in larger areas. So there's just nowhere for the animals to be. So that changes things a lot. Alan Winston is here. Question on the solar panel business there. How is there? And then how about battery systems for house backups? I haven't tried to buy them, but loads of people we know and hundreds of thousands that we don't have solar panels and batteries. Like, it's super common, right? This isn't the US, so we don't have all those supply chain problems of the US. We have basically unlimited supply of high quality solar equipment. So you can just go to any number of dealers and either just buy it and install it yourself, or have them do it, or just custom order, because we can direct ship from China. So you can get basically anything here, and all the tariffs that hit the US, we don't have those. And all the shipping and supply chain problems that have been a problem in the US for the last couple of years, we don't really have those. It's just we have a long boat from China, and things come in at a really great price, and you can do a lot. Luke says, 21 stray cats and dogs are prevalent across the country. Those 21 really get around. Oh, that's her screen name. Oh, I see. T44 says, "How great. I guess I'd just need to find a vet near where I'd be staying." Yeah, vets all over the place, but there are a lot of really crappy vets here. So you do need to be pretty discerning about your vets. You'll find amazing vets, right? I have a fantastic vet, but you do have to be a little bit cautious. The quality control on them is not the best, partially because if there's someone who's not really up to par, they may not get caught, right? No one may know who to turn them into or what to do, and so they may sneak under the radar pretty easily. James says, does anyone use cooling tower concept for cooling? I'm sure big office buildings do, but I don't know of any homes that do. Indigenal says, that was me, hola. Valentina says, hola, Ida. Oh, they left a long time ago. We're so far behind. Valentina, ¿aún estás en el video? ¿Cuándo vas a estar en el video? ¿Cuándo? Can you share cooking lessons? So obviously this is not for me. This is for Ida and Marcela. So Marcela did a cooking lesson, and we do have a cooking lesson coming up, kind of like showing how street food is made, is coming very soon. And she was working on some of the promos for that while she was here. So yes, we want to do more of that. That only got derailed because Marcela had because of the cancer, and so that really made it difficult for her to keep doing it. But we had started a series where we were having specifically stuff like that because that's really interesting and fun. What are the common vegetables? It's not that wild. It's mostly a subset of what you're used to in North America with a lot of yucca. I'm sure there's some that are used all the time that I'm unaware of, but it's a lot of vegetables you're used to with a heavy reliance on ayote, which is, they equate to pumpkin. It's pumpkin-ish, but it's not really pumpkin, but it is a squash. Lots of squashes, lots of tomatoes, tons of onions and peppers, like not spicy pepper. This is not a spicy cuisine country. You can find it, but it's rare. The Italian place I went to, not a Nika place, but an Italian place I went to at lunch, or dinner, they had like spicy oil. They also use spicy oil here, just as much as they use like hot sauce, which is surprising. They make hot sauce here. It's pretty good, but it's not very popular. There's plenty of broccoli. Cauliflower can be hard to find, but it's out there. Yucca is a big addition that people are not used to, so that's pretty common in cuisine here. Loads of beans, of course. Celery and like all that kind of stuff. If anyone has a specific thing, like I don't do cooking, but most of those things are available. Carrots, of course, lots of carrots, radishes, It's normal vegetables. There's extremely little that I would think of as being unique that's in any amount of common cuisine, but way more reliance on onions and green peppers than anywhere else I've ever been. Valentina says, "Que rico repocheta, mi mama la hace rico." Yeah, her mom makes really good repochetas. Her mom being Marcela. Indigital says, "Link to video, Gallo Pinto." Which video? The repocheta video? Valentina says, "Mi mama las hace con queso solo." Indigital says, "Plantains." Oh, yes. Loads of plantains, of course. That's technically a fruit, but we use it like a vegetable, and it is in everything all the time. Anna Jones says, "I love the fried fish in Nicaragua." We do have really good fried fish here. That is true, of many different types. Yemi says, "Alo Ida." Indigital says, "Fresh fruit." We have loads of fresh fruit. That's where we're a bit different. So technically a fruit, but so we have tons of avocado, of so much variety. That's something North Americans are not used to, that it's cheap, plentiful, and loads of different types. So you have much different flavors. Our fruit profile here is extremely different. It is tons of lime and a lot of fruits that people don't know with different flavor profiles and texture profiles. But we really hard to get apples, really hard to get pears, impossible to get oranges and lemons, things that you would think nothing, you'd be so shocked to not have. But what we do have with papaya and guanabana and guava and loads of things that I don't really eat, breadfruit and bitter oranges, which are actually a grapefruit family, pomelos, limes are everywhere. There, watermelon, really popular. Loads and loads of fruit. So much grapefruit, so much pineapple. It's a great fruit environment, but it's a different fruit environment. There's no berries, but so much banana, right? You just have to adapt your fruit thinking and be like, okay, we're going to have a bunch of different things. And then it becomes cheap and plentiful. So you could have smoothies with, celery and spinach and pineapple and lime and papaya and guava every day with all this like super antioxidants and great stuff. But it won't be what you're used to. You're not going to be doing blueberries and raspberries and strawberries. Like all that stuff is super expensive and hard to find. Let's see. Valentina says, "Adios, mami." Indigital says, "You look good, Marcela." Unfortunately, she's gone. Hopefully, she's watching the live stream from home. Often she does. Edwin says, "Hi, Scott." Edwin says, "Do you know that last Sunday, Fanta Uva is back?" Honestly, I didn't know Fanta Uva had left. I guess I noticed. I haven't seen it in stores. It is my favorite Fanta, so I'm surprised I hadn't really noticed, but I don't drink a lot of soda. But that is weird that it disappeared and then came back. Why did that what is going, Edwin? Why did that happen? But yeah, I like Fanta Uva. Edwin says, "Also, can you mention about Detroit?" What about Detroit? Vince says, "Thanks." 110 Cupcakes 123 says, "Be careful with Detroit." Yemi says, "Ciao, Marcelita." Edwin says, "Just because it is a ghost town since 2011 and one was declared bankrupt in 2013. Indigenous says, "Explain on the boat." I'll need more information. I don't know what the... Oh, the boat. Okay, Edwin says, "A yacht caused chaos in the Carretera Nueva a León." That's the new road to León, which goes through Nagarote, Matare, those places. When reached to the Saratoga Bridge. Yeah, you think the Saratoga Bridge would have been a problem? It's not a very high bridge. Like, who thought that was going to work? So the yacht had to go through Ciudad Sandino, urban areas, making Disnorte. So basically a yacht was brought through the country. I don't know where it came from. It's heading to San Juan del Sur, which did nothing to ingratiate the rest of us to San Juan del Sur, let me tell you. And it came through and they had brought a boat larger than can make it down the highway. Why it was going through that part of the highway, I do not know, because there's a bypass to make sure that doesn't happen. But for some reason, they brought it through the capital instead of down the highway. And so they brought it right through Ciudad Sandino and destroyed the electrical and internet infrastructure of Ciudad Sandino as they went. They decided, it's too tall to make it down the highway. So they just turned, went through the neighborhoods and go, oh, this doesn't work. Well, I guess we just go. And they just ripped through the power lines and drove through the cities, just tearing down the poles. Like absolutely mayhem. And it's been the biggest news thing here for a bit. Don says the most reliable cars come from Japan. Actually, Don, well, that is true, but it's barely true anymore. China is now so reliable that they're often tied with or directly after the Japanese cars. So what's traditionally been like, you know, Japan and Germany and like a mix of different things, it's now Japan and China, with China very much nipping at their heels as likely to be the most reliable within a year or two. Especially, you know, like my wife doesn't even want to own Toyotas because Toyota intentionally hid defects in the United States that caused death, right? They had like brakes that didn't work and they didn't do recalls because not enough people died. Like, so we have really strong distrust of Japanese cars because Japan let them get away with that, and Toyota, like the culture was such that, well, it was the death of foreigners, so who cares, right? It was the way that it was presented. So very wary of Japanese vehicles. Our last Toyota, because that's what we were able to get here, worked, but it didn't work great. We were never happy with the car. So we're very happy to have unloaded it. Now, that said, we did replace it with a Mitsubishi. Also a lot of problems, but better. So happy not to be on Toyota. The non-Toyota groups in Japan definitely make us feel a lot more confident. But buying new when we actually have choices on the market, let me tell you, we're buying Chinese. Like, they have so much better prices, so much better reliability ratings now, better options, more aggressive pricing. Like, they're working hard to get into the market, and it's impressive, right? I think if people give it a fair shake, it's hard not to buy Chinese these days for cars. Edwin says, police and the city mayor's office to suspend electrical supply to almost the entire city to disconnect every wiring until it left. His final destination was actually Puerto Salvador Allende, not San Juan del Sur. Everyone reported it as San Juan del Sur. That's why it went through there. Okay, that makes so much more sense. The news that we saw it on was, okay. Wow, they're putting a yacht into Salvador Allende? Why? And why didn't they put it in at one of the other ports? Like, that's what Momotumbo is for. All right. As the people initially thought. Right. James says, you learn something new every day. Cooling tower and swamp coolers, same concept. Yeah, but one's a tower above your building and the other is just a thing in the room. Indigenous says, yikes. Indigenous says, I'll help film the trip to Belize. What about Belize? I do videos on Belize because I work up there, so I film it. Tao says, roger that. It wouldn't be cool to get my drone taken or go to jail. Both things are generally bad, yeah. Anna Jones says, pulperia equals small convenience store. Yep. Indigenous says, the Helix is Toyota. No, but the Hilux, Hilux, is Toyota. The Hilux it is not actually the same truck, but it replaces the Tacoma in certain markets. For, I believe, the Tacoma is more luxury and the Hilux is more like farm vehicle. They're very close. They're essentially the same truck. The Hilux is actually slightly smaller, but lifted and more durable. And the Tacoma is slightly larger, lower, and more luxurious. I believe that is the correct breakdown. Obviously, the Land Cruiser is the higher end one, but those get expensive. The Hilux is the affordable luxury vehicle that people who want to show off. Yes, people who actually have farms and need like a heavy duty work truck, they get Hilux, but because they do so, it's much like, cowboy boots and hats. People who actually wrestle cattle wear them, but so do people who think their aesthetic is interesting. And so the same people who are like pretending to be cowboys and show off that they can afford work vehicles also drive Hilux. So you get true working people and obnoxious people who are just driving large vehicles for no reason with those. So just watch out for that. But yeah, the Hilux is Toyota, and it is a very good truck. I would much rather a Land Cruiser, and I did see a 2026 Land Cruiser today getting registered, and wow, I love Land Cruisers. But if you're looking for trucks, check out Great Wall. They've got really good trucks, from what I can tell. And Digital says, thanks, Milton. I don't see what Milton said. Oh, he spelled Hilux for you. Milton says, no problem. Edwin says, yes, Hilux is from Toyota, and oh my gosh, what's the other one? The one that's the van. Hilux? Wow, suddenly I can't think of it. Normally, it would just be on tip of my tongue. Milton says, hey, Scott, does Nicaragua have a stock market or index? It does have a stock market. I'm not aware of an index. And how easy is it to invest in if they do? I'm pretty sure it's quite easy to, but I believe if you're an American, it's illegal. I certainly would not do it. And I don't mean illegal in Nicaragua. Of course, Nicaragua is happy to have you invest. The United States has sanctions against Americans investing abroad, and there is an extremely high risk that a stock, because there's only like 6 companies with traded stocks in Nicaragua on the exchange. The exchange is located at Invercasa in Villa Fontana. And I've talked about this before. Because it is a unbelievably serious federal crime for an American, and I think you're an American, to invest in anything that touches the gold industry in Nicaragua, and because there's a very high chance that any large company in Nicaragua will have some ties to the gold industry, you do not want to have all of your assets seized and you instantly jailed if setting foot in the United States because you invested in a stock in Nicaragua, not realizing that it invested in something else itself. So the nature of blind investing, like is done in the United States, as an American, is not actually free and legal around the world. Normal people from other countries have the freedom to invest wherever they want. Americans have to be protected from their own government by government-sanctioned investment vehicles because we don't have the freedom to invest anywhere for anything that makes money. We're not a free market the way that most of the world is. So that's something to be aware of, that you have sanctions on you, and they are truly terrifying. So you have to be aware of that. But there's also very little reason to do that. Blind investing like you do in the US is not good as an individual investor. It is something that Americans are encouraged to do because it is good for the overall economy. And so it's like because we have millions of people that we can get to all do it, it works out well. Doing it in another market individually would only hurt you. Because publicly traded stocks is a terrible way to make money, right? I could go on for hours and hours and hours about why that's a terrible mechanism. But if you are a business that had the potential of really making money, that is not what you do, right? If you were really had a good business plan, individual investors would give you the money. It's when you have to go to the public, you're losing the oversight. Basically, there's no way around the corporation becoming corrupt when the owners are not able to watch the shop. Indigenous says, thanks, Edwin. Are you in Nicaragua? He is. Don says, Milton Ramirez, Bolsa de Valores de Nicaragua. They mostly trade fixed income bonds. Milton says, okay, yeah, things like that should be fine, right? But that's not a stock market. That is it's a market, but it's not a stock market in that case. So slightly different. Mostly fixed incomes are okay because you'll know what they are. But be careful because gold can be a fixed income. It can be packaged as a fixed income. Tao says, how would you compare the culture of San Juan del Sur de Leon aside from the tourist-centered economy, or is it the same difference? Oh, no, it's completely different places. So comparing culture is hard in all cases. But San Juan del Sur, let's start with the really obvious thing. San Juan del Sur is a coastal village. Leon is a non-coastal major city, second largest city in the country. So they're fundamentally completely different places. Leon is the capital of a region. It is the sub-capital that oversees other capitals. So like Chinandega is a subject capital to Leon. Leon is not just the capital of the Departamento Leon, it is also the capital of Nicaragua Occidental. It is also the second largest city in the country, and it also gets a lot of primacy because it is the first city of revolution. So when the country, it has the longest heritage of being free in the country. It was free 2 weeks before the rest of the country. For example, it is seen as the place that freed the rest of the country. It is seen as the center of much of the culture. Obviously, Masaya, also a major cultural incubator zone of traditional culture. That is Masaya. That is the heartland of the Nicaragua. But Leon is the heartland of the Nicaraguan spirit, along with I would throw out there Ditiamba. DDM was a lot more connected to Messiah, though, than to Leon. So very, very, very different places historically and culturally. San Juan del Sur, yes, is a tourist economy, and Leon is a manufacturing and education economy, so that makes them feel very, very different. One is like 15,000 people, the other is 300,000 people. That makes them feel very different. San Juan del Sur has an absolutely staggering percentage of expats that live there and of expats that visit there. So when you're there, while it is technically not, it does function as sort of an open air enclave, which is not bad, right? But it means a very different culture. When you go to San Juan del Sur, one of the things that as an American I love about San Juan del Sur is this unbelievable variety of restaurants and styles of things, and just there's so much, in a small space. A sushi restaurant, a little cafe, a fancy sandwich place, a cool taco place, you name it. Like, you have a variety of food, good pizza shops that compete, and some Nicaraguan food too, but there's a lot of different stuff. And when you're going to Leon, you're going to a place that is Nicaraguan. Right, variety of food is very low. There's less variety of food in all of Leon than there is in San Juan del Sur, and I mean that. I'm not being facetious. Like, San Juan del Sur really does, within its downtown area, probably beat Leon in the extended zone. Maybe not if you include the beaches, but if you include all the area around San Juan del Sur in an area the size of Leon, it's going to wallop us, even though the population is only barely more than the 15,000. So that's huge. Like, there's just so much because of the extra money from the expats and the desire for variety that expats bring. It changes the nature of life in the area. And so some of these things are very hard to describe, so I'm hoping I get this impression across. San Juan del Sur is basically a collection of gated communities and little areas where expats have established zones with then little pockets of Nicaraguans living between them. It is hilly, so you have this really interesting, like a place could be just a few hundred meters away, but it feels like a different world because the climate changes, the road changes, the view changes, and all that. It's super interesting and really, really neat. But if you're looking to really be a part of Nicaragua, it's going to be very hard to do that in San Juan del Sur because you're very much a part of an enclave. And I understand it's not actually an enclave, and I don't want to make it sound like there's no Nicaraguan culture there, but it is very strong how much you are drawn into its own unique world. It is not a part of the general Nicaraguan experience. We do not think of it in that way. Nicaraguans don't think of it in that way. And it's very much its own culture. And that has to be understood. When you go out in San Juan del Sur, you're getting mostly specialized expat events. You go to a bar and you can seek out Nicaraguan bars, but they're very hard to find. You have just loads and loads of, here's a place where expats are going for food and gathering together. Here's a place where expats are going for drinks and gathering together. Here's where expats are going for an activity and gathering together. And that's the locals. And then you have the tourists, which are almost all expats. So you have this additional culture of all these transient, mostly foreigners who are there. And so there's whole parts of town that are just for them for the most part, right? So bars that cater just to them, these people that just come in, go to tourist spots that the locals don't want to go to. They all go get drunk, and then they go to a wild party, and then they leave. And this is in a tiny village. This impacts everything. It makes it what it is. When you then go to Leon, you have so few expats that you don't have expat communities, even like Granada has. You see expats. You'll see them in the square. You'll see them on the streets from time to time. You'll even see them in the barrios once in a while. And if you go out to the beach, obviously there's loads. But even in the beach, the percentage is maybe half to 2/3, not 75 to 85%. Like it's noticeably different, even at the beach. But in the city itself, there are very few. They live spread out. Yes, the center of the city definitely has more, but we really are spread out. Fatima probably has some of the biggest amounts. For example, like there tends to be some clumps, but only just because it's more wealthy areas. But there are wealthy areas with no expats at all, so that does exist. In Leon, so much is centered around traditional Nicaraguan food and traditional Nicaraguan activities. So there aren't these like lots of different things going on at night. There's loads of live music, loads of karaoke, loads of salsa dancing. That's where Ida and Marcela are going tonight. They're going to La Fabrica to go to the salsa night in downtown Leon. And Nicaraguans have a tendency to have a smaller amount of things that they like to do. Americans have a tendency to do many things less often. And Nicaraguans really tend to do fewer things very often. And it's a huge cultural difference to understand this, that in the US, it would be like, hey, do you want to go to the bar? Nah, I went to the bar yesterday. Okay, do you want to go see some live music? Nah, I saw some live music yesterday. Like, that would be the approach. And you'd be like, okay, well, how about we get some Mexican food? Nah, I got some Mexican food yesterday. In Nicaragua, people would be like, you want to go see some live music? Yes, I saw some yesterday. Or I haven't seen any since yesterday. Okay, cool. You want to go to the bar? Yeah, for sure. I haven't been since yesterday. Okay, cool. And you want to get some Nicaraguan food for dinner? For sure. I haven't had any since yesterday, right? So it's a completely different vibe that you're just so open to going out and doing the same thing that you did yesterday. It's like, what are we going to do again? What are we doing tonight, Pinky? The same thing we do every day, brain. We're here, or the other way around. We're here to take over the world, right? We're here to have Tonya and listen to a rock band. And hopefully go dancing, right? There is variety there, and people go to different venues. They'll be like, we're going to an El Vivero and be like in like lush plant life, or we're going to go to 23 Bar and it's going to be like reggaeton and people dancing like nonstop, or we're going to go out to the beach and watch the sunset, right? They'll have a variety in their venue, but they'll want very similar flavor profiles. And I know really well educated and to some degree well traveled Nicaraguans who have high incomes living at the top end of very upper middle class, maybe not bordering upper class, but really solidly upper middle class, making really close to 300% the middle class entry point. Doctors and young, no kids, just a couple dogs, and live in a very conservative community, meaning like price wise, so that they can really just spend their money going out. Go to Europe, go to the United States, go to Asia, like really travel around, and they'll still have conversations like, I don't want to try any new food. There's these, maybe 8 dishes that they eat in Nicaragua, and they're the only ones they want to have. Nicaraguans, somehow, I have no idea how the environment nurtures this, but there is this very clear lack of training to enjoy variety. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Variety is expensive and challenging. Americans very often have this, I can't do that. I did that within the last 2 weeks. We must have every moment be variety. And when it's available to you, that's a great thing. But when it's not available to you, it's very limiting. Now, Nicaraguans have the opposite problem. When they're home, they're in great shape. But if they travel, sometimes they can't get anything that they're happy with at all. So the challenges go both ways. But it's a very surprising thing that Nicaraguans see the variety that Americans seek as annoying almost. Not that they're annoyed by us, but they're like, that's a negative. I don't want all these restaurants I would never want to eat at in my way. I just want every restaurant to have the same food because that's what Nicaraguans typically want. Completely normal to have a group of Nicaraguans be like, it's great that a new restaurant is opening up. I sure hope their menu is the same as the other places I like. Whereas Americans would be like, there's a new restaurant opening up. I hope not a single item on their menu replicates a place that I like because I just want all new things. And so that is this massive cultural difference. And so Leon plays that out well, that there is a huge number of successful, nearly cookie cutter restaurants with the only thing different being the lighting and the seats and stuff, but not the food and the vibe. and they work, and that's what people want, and no one's complaining about it except the expats who are like, why can't we have something else? Why can't we have a Thai restaurant? Why can't we have a like Tex-Mex restaurant? Why can't we have a fast food restaurant? Like all these things that we're used to, why can't we have any of those? There's no Venezuelan restaurant in the city. There's no Colombian restaurant in the city. We could go on and on and on with all the really normal things that don't exist. And when things do exist and you're like, okay, we're going to go to a Mexican restaurant, you get there and it's like barely Mexican. Just like if you're in the US and you go to a Mexican restaurant and it turns out to be Tex-Mex that has like, I don't know, a mole sauce. And you're like, okay, at least you knew this one word and found this one thing. But then it's like, that's like it. And here it would be like that. You go to a Mexican restaurant and most of the food is still Nicaraguan and the terms are mostly still Nicaraguan, and you have to really fight to get anything that's actually Mexican. It's not 100% the case. Sometimes there are Mexican restaurants, but it's often like that. So very different views of food and stuff like that. And the same thing with going out, right? The live music, the karaoke, the dancing, as just these are the things you do. Sure, there's movie theaters, but there's just so much more limited what there is to do. But if those are things you like to do, it's fantastic. Now, a lot of Americans like staying home and watching TV or whatever. Well, Nicaragua is one of the best places on earth to do that because we have great internet and everything else in life is cheap and we can get home delivery of things. So, I mean, I can watch Star Wars on a big screen in the United States at high cost of living or Nicaragua at low cost of living. Which is better? Well, clearly, all other things being equal, the lower cost of living, we have the same Star Wars on the same big screen TV and so forth. So if you are going to be a relatively normal North American and spend a bunch of time indoors and then only maybe once a week go out and do something, then going out and doing things in Leon probably won't feel very weird because that lifestyle of not going out very much limits your exposure to those things that don't have a lot of variety. But if you are someone who wants to either go out all the time or you come to Nicaragua and you adapt to the Nicaraguan normality of going out all the time, it's a cultural thing that they will go out very often. You may find, okay, I'm really into this. Let's go out 5 nights of the week. Excellent. And then be like, oh, but we're doing the same thing every night. And they'll just be like, well, of course, once you find the thing you want to do, why would you not keep doing it? Right. And to them, it's like, that really is the mindset. Like, I like live music, karaoke, and dancing often in the same night. And I like beer and rum. Why would I have vodka? Why would I have whiskey? Why would I have wine? Why would I sit in a chair when I could dance? Right. All those things are just, but I enjoy them. So I enjoy them. And Americans are like, I enjoy them, but nothing do I want to do all the time. And it's just, it's amazing that the nurture must be the source of that difference. But so Leon has that very Nicaraguan feel as to what the city is like. And San Juan del Sur very much has a catering to foreigners feel as to what the city is like within the confines of being within Nicaragua. So there are limitations. Awesome Carrillo Clan mentions bao and quesillos as some food items that are Nicaraguan. I really need to do an episode on quesillos. I need to get out. Once we have the truck and a license, I'm going to Nagarote, and we're going to do an episode on just quesillos. And with all these, we just have to get a couple cute girls together who want to go do it, and because they look great on shows eating food. No one wants to see me eating a quesillo of all things. Certainly. Raging Gun says, hi, friends. Awesome Curio says, Gallo Pinto. Yep, we mentioned that one. Gigi says, what's a realistic nest egg amount to bring to get settled in a rental and also for the hotels and Airbnb? That's a hard one to answer. It does vary a lot by different people, like for sure. So setting up an apartment. So we did this for someone and we worked out a budget really carefully. And I feel like we got them into an apartment. This is a single person trying to do a really upscale studio style, so not like I described with a tiny student place, but basically the same thing on a bigger scale, right? So he wanted a nice TV, he wanted air conditioning, he wanted space to like sprawl out, but in a studio. He didn't want a separate bedroom, he didn't want a separate kitchen, he didn't want anything extra. So he I mean, it made sense. He was a single guy. He's like, this is how I live. Why would I spend money on anything extra? And it's like, okay, yeah, nope, totally makes sense. And I think that really at the end, once he got everything set up, the part that we had budgeted for, which was like mandatory appliances and such to kind of get your life started, he was able to do it for like $1,100. Now, he was being super frugal. He was shopping for used stuff wherever he could. He really put in a big effort to try to do it. So, granted, given those things, it worked out really well, and he was able to put things together very, very cheaply. He then also had a bunch of things where he just kind of lost his mind, or like, I'm going to spend money on things that make no sense really quickly, and ended up with a lot of budgetary problems because he did that, and because he didn't like the country, like he didn't manage to adapt in any reasonable way, and had made all this investment before he made that decision. So that was hugely problematic. But I think including his like bed and everything, I mean, I think you're really safe at like $3,000 if you're willing. I mean, if you're gonna go crazy, obviously there's no budget that's gonna be great for you. And obviously some things are expensive. Like he had to put in 2 air conditioners. That's $900 no matter what to buy the air conditioners. Then you need to install them. Okay, that's another $700. So that was $1,600 in air conditioners, but it's a one-time major cost. If you don't need air conditioners or you only need one, cut that in half or take it away. He bought a whole bunch of fans. Most people need 1, maybe 2. He did a lot more kitchen stuff than you might need. There's a lot of places you could play around with the different prices, but excluding the air conditioning, I think you could have couch and bed and kitchen appliances and most of those things for around about $3,000 would probably make it that you're able to move in and have most of the things that you would generally consider necessary for living. But basically those prices are going to be very similar to if you go to Walmart in the US and price them out, right? You don't need really too much of knowing that it's Nicaragua. Be aware you need everything. Your apartment, if you get unfurnished, will come with nothing. And then go to a Walmart and imagine walking around a Walmart and going, okay, how many bowls will I need? How many forks will I need? How many placemats will I need? How many lights will I need? How many, right? And start thinking about those things. Hold on, I gotta open the door for the dog. And you just start pricing that out at a US Walmart, and that's going to give you an awfully good vision as to what it's going to be like here in Nicaragua, because in many cases, if you're on a budget and you're going for a single person small apartment or something of that nature, then there's a really good chance that you are going to be shopping at Pali, which is the Walmart. And that's where we buy our bowls. That's where we buy our forks, right? Because they have good deals on that stuff, and it's available in our neighborhood. Like, it's pretty easy to go there. So that's a good place to get started. And those prices, while different, won't be wildly different. Hopefully they'll be cheaper. There's a really good chance they'll be cheaper, and especially because we have all these options to shop around that aren't Walmart, so you may be able to save a bit of money, and you may be able to get used in that. But if you were to simply go to the Walmart-owned places, and I'm not saying that that's what you should do, but it's certainly an option. It's certainly a thing that many Nicaraguans would do, that you could do so in the United States and say, okay, here's what it is. And hopefully that the tariff differences here will make it all noticeably cheaper. But if it's off by an amount, it'll be off by very little, right? Because maybe a few things will be a little bit more, a few things will be a little bit less, a few things will be the same. I think it would mostly come out in the wash, either as being more affordable than you think, or pretty much right on the money by the time it all falls out. So now, as far as getting settled with a rental in the hotel or Airbnb before that, very hard to tell. It depends how you want to live and how long it's going to take you to find a place, how aggressive you're going to be. Mike and his family just did this, and one of the things that they found is they found a house that they really liked, but then ended up needing a lot more time in the hotel because the house that they wanted wasn't ready yet, so they were willing to wait for it, which makes sense. Sure, great, wait for the house. Now you get the house you really want, and I think the house they're getting is fantastic. I would have waited too. But that means that they're needing to negotiate a hostel or something to hold them for quite some time while they're waiting for that. So that hits a little bit in the pocketbook. If you're willing to live in a shared hostel, you're going to be super cheap. If you need an Airbnb, good luck finding an Airbnb. If you can find something that's month to month for, $600 or so, figure 3 months, right? I know a lot of people want to get in and try to do it in a week. Hey, if you can, that's fantastic, but that's going to be really hard. You need time to settle and get to know areas and just learn things. So if you can find a short-term rental that gets you a few months that you can afford to leisurely go look for places and investigate the area and learn what it's like, it's going to get you a lot farther than other behaviors. So, what you have to do and what you should do are not the same thing. Can you live on a really tiny budget and make it work? Yes, if you're being really aggressive and willing to, take limitations because you have very little time to find things, you have very little time to negotiate, you have very little nest egg, you can do it. You can make it work. But you have to accept those limitations. And you can do that and then adjust and be like, okay, well, this got me my place for my first year. Then I'm going to pack up all these things I bought and move it to the next place for next year. Okay, that works. That's going to be fine. And the amount that different people have different approaches to this is so big that coming up with a budget, what I can do if it was me, or what we can do with people I know, maybe double what you need or a tenth. And just everyone has, and all it takes is adjusting that one thing. And this person that had the famous failure that we talked about a bit, that we often use as an example, all of the things that we talked about for pricing and such ahead of time worked out exactly as he had anticipated, like really accurately. We had gotten some of these things worked out. And when it then came time to actually live here, it turned out that something he wanted that he had never mentioned was he was really passionate about having a luxurious workout gym experience. And he needed a very specific coffee shop experience. And those things for him to get here in a way that he was comfortable with was super expensive. For example, he wanted to get coffee and spend time lingering in a coffee shop, but did not want to drink his coffee there. And in the United States or wherever he was living, Thailand, I think, this was something that was very easy to do and he felt comfortable doing it. In Nicaragua, he only liked the high-end American-style coffee shop that's a national chain. They're a huge price premium because people mostly go there to show off that they can go there because it's super expensive. Now, I happen to be completely coincidentally drinking my coffee out of one of their coffee things. They do have good coffee. They do have great service. They're basically like a Starbucks. Right. But they're an incredible premium here. When we're pricing things out, at no point were we considering that he was going to make the most expensive coffee shop in the city that nobody makes a regular thing into a regular thing. And then he had this thing where every time he ate, he would order 3 meals and pick at them and pick from different meals to assemble one final dinner. So in all of our food planning for him, we would say, okay, what's a dinner going to cost for you? Well, a whole chicken and this and that, it's going to be, $8. And he'd be like, but it's always $25. I'm like, how are you spending $25? There's no meal in this restaurant for $25. How are you getting up to $25? And he's just like, are you an idiot? Because you order 3 meals, you don't order 1. I'm like, what? And it turns out that his life pattern was to order 3 completely unique meals and eat bits of each of them and then throw most of it away, or maybe give it to dogs. I don't know. Maybe he did something very responsible with it, but it wasn't keep it as leftovers for tomorrow, and it wasn't eat it himself. It was buy 3 times the food he needed every day and mostly eat at restaurants, not eat at home. And so a whole bunch of budgets that we had planned on went right out the window because his lifestyle was very surprising and something we couldn't have anticipated. And the same thing ended up happening at the coffee shop. He would go to this super high-end coffee shop for one reason. There was something about it that made it the only place he was willing to go. It was probably the air conditioning. So he felt that he had to go to this place to get the air conditioning. But then once he went there, he found that when he bought a coffee, it made him uncomfortable. This was completely on him. He didn't find it comfortable to just get a coffee and sit there because he didn't drink it right away. So he felt that he had to buy food. So every time he went there, he was buying a bit of really expensive desserts. But he doesn't want to eat those really expensive desserts because they're very fattening, which is good. Don't want to make it unhealthy. But so he was buying food just to be able to sit at the table. So to him, he would repeat things like the cup of coffee is $15. But really, it was his obsession with this particular venue was costing him $15 a day because of his own neuroses about how you can interact with the business. The business didn't make him spend that much money. They didn't even suggest that he does. They didn't ask him to in any way. They simply provided a comfortable place for him to buy coffee and sit and do whatever he wanted to people watch or whatever. And he just wasn't comfortable doing that. And so was doing weird things to try to make himself comfortable in a situation where he was fundamentally uncomfortable. Same thing with the gym itself. There are gyms, he had asked, are there gyms available? Yes, all over. It's a very common thing. There's a gym walking distance from where you live. You should definitely try that out. And he's like, great. And then immediately he's like, oh no, this gym is not going to do. I want to go to a gym on the far side of the city. And it's the one really big thing that he did as an activity. And so he would then, put in all this effort to go over to this very far away gym. And it was very expensive as gym pricing went, and was spending tons of money, even though we had budgeted much less for the gym, because he hadn't specified that he needed this type of gym. The normal Nicaraguan gyms weren't adequate for him, which is, again, all these things are perfectly fine, but it's very unforeseeable aspects of his budget. And then, of course, because he had picked where to live without coming and seeing it first, he then had this, well, the only thing that I do is go to this gym and go to this coffee shop, which are in two wildly different parts of the city. So I think eventually he switched to the coffee shop that was next to the gym. They are next to each other at one point. And but they are very far from where he had decided to live, and he made this commitment on where to live before he figured out his lifestyle and country. So his next thing was immediately he had to buy a motorcycle or a scooter. And so he bought one, all within like 72 hours, like so many big decisions so fast. So on one side, you can see how he burned himself out and made himself unhappy with Nicaragua because he didn't give it a chance to figure out a pattern that worked for him. He could easily have spent slightly more, gotten an apartment directly next to the gym once he figured out that was the right gym for him, or said, ooh, Leon is the wrong city for me because it isn't a city that has these gyms that I want. Instead, I need to get an apartment in Managua that has many of them, or the new one in Chinandega. I could get an apartment right next to it and have this great experience that's much cheaper because of the exact mix of things that matter to me. We didn't have that information, and he didn't give it time for him to provide that input or gain that knowledge. And so it's dangerous to try to budget because these kinds of things aren't the norm, but they do come up pretty easily and can create differences in things like budgets that are so shocking and crazy that it's very, very difficult. All right, Gigi then says, for a family of 6, 4 kids and 2 adults. We should get Mike on the show, which I'm going to do. We were talking about it today because he really wants to give feedback on he has a family of 6 that has recently moved in, and he can talk about a bunch of those pricing experiences in a much more direct and current way compared to me, because he went through a lot of this, like took a long time to find a house, got the right house but needed to do something, whatever. So that would be really good to have him on the show and talk about that. Janet says, Ramon even had a bit of an issue with the heat in the middle of the day. Oh, that's something if Mancho's having an issue. Mondatazo says, prioritize the plantains. Ranging Gun, yeah, if you're working, AC is good. I actually do, well, if you're working outside, AC is like working movement. For just working in my office, it's actually, if I could get the windows open easily and have a breeze through, I wouldn't need it 95% of days. Raging Gun, I have 2 dogs. How much does it cost? When I did it, it was $14,000. Will they survive the long flight? I mean, we only never fly a dog in cargo. Ever. And especially not to Nicaragua. No, I don't know any dog that would survive a 20-hour flight. 20-hour flights in cargo are a death sentence for dogs. Especially if you come into a place like Nicaragua, they are going to be on the verge of death if they are not already dead when you arrive. They will take them out in the heat of the day, and they will go onto the tarmac. They will cook to death, no question. Guaranteed death. Don't do it. If you can bring a dog that is small in the actual plane area. If you have control, the dog must remain in your personal possession, in your arms at all times. If that does not happen, assume your dog will not make it. Many dogs do make it, but people who do those flights and take that risk, all report that their dogs nearly died and they thought they were going to lose them, and all move to the border and fly the shortest possible flight. So the people whose dogs nearly die are doing 2 to 3 hour flights, not 20-hour flights. A 20-hour flight, guaranteed, your dogs will just be corpses when you arrive. Please do not do that. Under no condition would I ever put an animal that I wanted to survive into cargo. I know that quite often they do. It is the most horrendous experience and so risky. If the dog is worth keeping, it's worth protecting. But if you fly them in the rare that you can take them in the cabin, but when that works, that's fine. We did private flight. To do private flight, here's some tips. You pay by the mile. So do everything you can to get as close as possible. If you live anywhere in North America, that means driving to Miami Executive Airport. That is by far the closest. The flight is 2 hours, 5 minutes. When we did it, it was $14,000. Today, I expect, even though it's only been 4 years, it's probably over $30,000. The cost of everything in the U.S. has skyrocketed. It is so expensive. That is, now we got to fly down. We didn't have to crate them. We didn't have to do anything. They got the run of the cabin. We're like, do we have to tie them down? And the pilots are like, this is your plane. You can do anything you want, right? Like, that's what private plane means. And for us, it was such a perfect situation. We had 2 dogs. One could have flown in a cabin with us, but the other, the one that's here with me right now, sleeping on the bed, is a larger dog, and she would die in a crate even if we weren't on a plane. 20 hours in a crate, we would find her dead as it is, because she has such a neurotic problem, and that's not being facetious. That is, she would truly kill herself. We can't give her 30 minutes. We think, between 5 and 20 minutes is about what it would take for her to have a heart attack if she was in a crate. So we can never consider it under any conditions. We were terrified of putting her in the plane, but she just got in. She was with us. She was loose. She had a collar on. That was it. And she just I'm sure she had a harness on. And she got onto the plane, was with us, and just laid down in the aisle. And she's like, my plane. We're like, it is. We bought this plane for you. And she was perfectly happy. Our little dog jumped up on someone's lap, and they held him as he come down. But because we paid for a private flight, not only could our babies come with us, but my wife and I and our children and a truly obnoxious amount of luggage was able to come down with us all in one go. Because, one, we knew we were making a commitment to Nicaragua. We had put in a long time researching countries. So we knew this was a one-way trip for our dogs. And so we were, we really considered it. We committed to Nicaragua. When we showed up, we were all in. Because the plane is ours, we could bring as many people and as much luggage as you could fit in the plane without additional cost. The cost is the cost. And so that ended up being great. Sure, it was more expensive than other options, but it wasn't as wildly as expensive as it could have been, because had we flown 4 people and 2 dogs somehow in a cabin on the way down with the amount of luggage we had, it would have been so much of a premium. Sure, not $14,000, but it would have been thousands and thousands of dollars to have done so. It would not have saved the kind of money that we would have hoped. So we managed to come down with all the family and a ton of our luggage. That made it really easy to do the transition all at once. The thing that I would recommend for people to do, if you can't bring if you one, very reasonably can't afford to fly down on a private plane, or 2, don't have animals that can fly with you in the cabin, then the thing that I'm going to say is what you need to do is drive down. And there are some people who help with this. There's a lot of reasons why you don't want to do it. You don't want to do it casually. We're glad that we didn't, but a lot of people do this. They take an old beater car, they register it in the U.S., they drive down, they get down here, they take their 30 days to relax in Nicaragua, and before they have to renew, which is 30 days, their visa for the car in Nicaragua, they return back through the countries, because you must return. There's never going to be an exception to this. Don't bother asking. No, you cannot leave a car behind. No, it does not make sense to drive the car and keep it. There's one thing that makes sense, that is starting in the US or Canada, driving to Nicaragua, dropping all the animals off, making sure everybody's okay, take enough time to refresh yourself, and drive back and sell the vehicle or give it away or whatever. That is the other option. It's unfortunate that getting animals here is so hard, but getting animals a long distance anywhere is incredibly difficult and dangerous, and so you gotta work around that. 3 coolest major cities: Matagalpa, Hinotega, and Esteli. Oh, from a temperature standpoint, yes, those are the 3 coolest. Indigenous says, lol, awesome. Have you filmed your apartment? The barrio sounds great. Fiber. Yeah, fiber definitely. We've got the exact same fiber I have here, I have at the apartment in the barrio. No problem at all. Same one I have out on the beach, even on the dirt roads, no problem. Have I filmed the apartment? I have. Let me go find that for you guys. It's pretty easy to find because it's the only $180 apartment that I've ever filmed. So if you think about it and go, oh, he did give away a clue that really says what it is, yeah, it's really easy to find. Now, this is when it was completely empty. So obviously now we've got cool stuff in it, and we actually, use it all the time. Like, it's really heavily used in reality. Please don't go watch that video now. Just save it to watch later. But it gives you an idea of what the empty apartment looked like. But we were so happy with it. Like, it's basic, but awesome, right? Just comfy. Now, obviously, part of that is we added really comfy beds to it. We put in a nice couch. It's the couch that we had in our first year, 2021. We got a couch for my wife and I had a really big bedroom, but it was my bedroom office combined thing. It was in the hotel. It was the manager's suite. And so we got a decent couch for it. We never needed that couch again. So we put it over there. That worked out great. And we put some nice plastic outdoor furniture. So you want to go over there, have coffee in the morning. There's a little garden out front. That works too. And if you guys subscribe to Aqua Elysium, which I will get you a link for, that channel, the apartment is one of the places where I film the rain. I am never at the apartment, but back when Marcela used to live there, I would go over and help out with things on a regular basis. And so a lot of times when I'm there, I'll be like, oh, I'm just going to film some rain or whatever. And so let me just grab this channel. There's a number of Central American little yard videos. It's pretty easy to tell when the videos are at my house here in the barrio, and when they're not, often they are at the apartment, if it says it. So I'll just try to find some names. Rain in front yard, Central America. Central America backyard rain, right? About 4 or 5 months ago. Those are videos from the apartment, just as an example. I film wherever. Some of these are from Argentina and stuff. I just film wherever. But that's a fun channel. Please go subscribe. It only has 32 subscribers right now. It would be so cool if we had at least 40 by the end of the day. And there's 38 people on the live stream right now. So go check out that channel for sure. I mean, who doesn't want to have a rain channel in your pocket? But honestly, if you guys are interested in Nicaragua, putting some Nicaragua rain onto a big screen TV and just letting it play in the background, it does kind of put you here a little bit. This is because half the year we're all about the rain. So yeah, come enjoy it. Now there are a few other things. I think I've got a good rainstorm in Texas. That one, we actually got hit with a tornado during the film. You can't see it, but at one point we're out there and we're like, this is pretty loud. It's because there was actually a tornado came through. I like the rain in Buenos Aires. That was good. But I show all kinds of different rain around and flooding on the ground, just to give you an idea. And rain on the beach. It's cool, right? I like it as a side project. It gives me a reason to use my cameras out in the rain. When I can't do other things, it's like, ooh, I can just go make a show for this. And, it's cool. I enjoy it. Anyway, please subscribe. And let's see. Have I filmed? Yeah, so there we go. In digital, that barrio is great, right? The barrio that's in. It's such a good mix of things. It's not particularly exciting. You don't walk out and go oh, look at all the activity. Nope, it's a bedroom community. It truly is. You walk out and go, oh, There's a cool pulperia. There's always a couple kids out on the street playing, kickball or whatever they're doing. And there's always just one or two cars driving through. It's never a lot of traffic. People walk in the road stupidly because there's just not that much traffic and so forth. And mostly it's just decent houses in a good, safe, easily accessible, well-positioned neighborhood. It's a perfect find. There's similar, so that's in the West. There's similar ones in the South. Probably some in the North that are almost as good. The West is particularly good because we have the beach. So that's kind of unique. Raging Gun says 350 Canadian. Is that for an apartment? No, everything's in USD. Remember, Nicaragua uses USD. So anytime we say dollars, we don't mean Canadian. How much is the 9-bedroom option? Well, I have the only one, so I don't know if you'll ever find another one. But I do know we took this one over. I can't remember if we got it. So my friend April used to have a house in Fatima, which is a primo address, way better than where I am. And it was on the park, so primo address within Fatima. And she looked at, and I went with her when she first looked at it, an 8-bedroom that was amazing and really fancy, really well done, amazing neighborhood, amazing spot within the neighborhood, walking distance to Paseo Real, and big, really good use of space, cool gardens, neat external access, really cool rooms, beautifully set up for entertaining. And that was like 800 or 850 for an 8-bedroom in one of the top neighborhoods. So that's one of the best. There's certainly a dozen or so better houses, but you'd struggle to really find many more than say a dozen, maybe 20 better houses within the city. Someone's going to come up with a list of better houses. But I've looked at an awful lot of houses. Of ones I've actually gone into, that is the best one that I've ever been in. And it was fantastic. I was like, that's why we actually ended up looking at houses. I went with her, saw that house, and I'm like, we gotta find another house. The one we're in is not adequate, and we're paying way too much. I think we were paying like $600 at the time, for a 7-bedroom, and it's like we gotta do better than this. We are not getting a deal compared to. I would much rather spend $800 on what she has or was going to get, and. So we started looking and ended up at this place. And there's a lot of things I like better about being here. There's a lot of things I like better about where she was. And yeah, it's really, really affordable. And like Jimmy just had an amazing place. I don't know how many bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, out on the beach, modern, on the sand, pool, really nice, 800. Right, so it gives you an idea of what things actually cost if you really shop around and push for Nicaraguan pricing. And sometimes you have to have a Nicaraguan with you because some people just won't rent to you. CDN Cordova Nicaraguense. No, the Canadian 2 Cordova. Is that what you're asking? The code for Cordova's NIO. Brent says, oh crap, I forgot it was Thursday. Happy to catch at least a bit of the stream. Enjoyed wandering around Sutiaba today very much. Brent, I actually drove past Dr. Coffee while you were there. I tried to scream out the window as I went by. Brent, we're going to Via tomorrow, so in case you want to join us. Raging Gun says Canadian money. Awesome. Carrillo Clan says, oh, my apologies. Gigi says, several vloggers in Panama City, which I was in recently and spoke to for several hours last night. One of my very, very best friends in the world lives in Panama City. And I was having a stressful day yesterday, and we talked for 4 hours on the phone. Mentioned they've had an issue with the electric all of a sudden comes like 5 times more than the usual amount, and they have to pay it or get shut off. Does that happen in Nicaragua? No, I don't know what that is. That's some weird thing going on in Panama. I have no idea what they're talking about. I mean, if you don't pay your electric, it would get shut off here. And if you have a change of price where it goes from a fixed to a non-fixed, it could go up by 5 times. But it would not be all of a sudden. You'd be very aware that they changed out your power equipment and stuff, and you were probably being taken off of fixed price. Brent says, heading to Mano a Mano for the weekend. Oh, yeah. So maybe bump into some of you all at Desperado's or on the beach. Brent, it's a women's only party at Desperado unless you're offering to be one of the dancers. Then talk to Dominica. She's always looking for more dancers for the event on Saturday. Indigital says, fruit, mangoes. Tiffany says, I heard you all have my favorite fruits from Jamaica and Asia, like wax apples, rambutan, and mango. We definitely have tons of mango. I don't know about wax apples and rambutan. They may have different names here. We're going to look it up. All right, wax apples, also known as Java apples, Semarang rose apples, or wax jambu. Hard to say. I mean, we're right next to Jamaica, so anything that grows there will likely grow here. That is not something that I can say that I have seen, though. So probably something you'd have to hunt down pretty hard. What is the other one? Rambutan. Did I spell that right? I did. Okay. Oh, that looks familiar. Ah, it's closely related to lychee. So we definitely have lychee, and this looks like we have this. So probably we have this. We may often call it lychee. But so much mango. I have mango trees that will drop on the house. I've got so many, but we can't eat as many mangoes as we have mango trees for right here. Tom says, Scott, what is your favorite vegetarian restaurant in Nicaragua? Why are there no Indian restaurants? No Indian restaurants because there's no interest. Like I said earlier, Nicaraguans do not like variety. So restaurants that come with variety, like an Indian restaurant, really can't serve Nicaraguan food, if that makes sense. They can't be an Indian restaurant in facade and then have the actual food be Nicaraguan, right? Like it's too different. Whereas you could have like a McDonald's serves gallo pinto here, right? It's easy to put, and fried cheese. It's easy to take things that are commonly Nicaraguan food and sneak them onto even a McDonald's menu, and they're made in the same way, on the same grills and so forth, so it's not too big of a deal. But if you are an Indian restaurant and all you make is like curries and like it doesn't work. Realistically, you can't do it. So Nicaraguans won't go to Indian restaurants is pretty much what we found, because all of us are like, oh, we really want to do this. We really want to find Indian restaurants, and then anytime one opens and we go to it, it's like it's already gone by the time we get there. Plus, there are no Indians, right? I have seen a total of 0 Indians in this country the whole time I've been here. 0, not a single one. And so because of that, there isn't much push, because there isn't anyone with like, ooh, this is a food that I know how to make. This is something that I do at home. There isn't an Indian family here, investing in some business who then, oh, we lost the camera, who then is also like, oh, and we have this family member who's a really good cook and also looking for work. I'll just keep talking while I change out the battery. Who can then run a restaurant on the side or anything like that, which is a common way that restaurants like that come into existence. So it's pretty easy to see, because we don't have any trade with India. There's no business going back and forth. There's no culture of Indians coming and visiting, that we just end up in a situation where there's neither demand for or opportunity for Indian restaurants. Much like most of the things, same thing with Thai food. Who would make it? You would need someone from Thailand or someone with a deep knowledge of Thai food to come to the country and decide that they want to stay and they want to take this incredible risk on investing in a restaurant type that absolutely nobody wants. Traditionally, no one is asking for, no one's looking for, and what would make someone want to take that kind of huge risk coming from Thailand? Right, Thailand already has low cost of living. Thailand is already decently free and safe. Thailand is, sorry for the no source detected. I hate that that's what comes up when I'm off, but it's something. Thailand has basically the same weather and so forth, so there's not a big draw for people to come over and cook Thai food, right? So at best, you're getting Nicaraguans who are interested in it, and that those basically don't exist. And where would a Nicaraguan even find out about it? Sorry, now I gotta get the dog. Hi. Okay, here you go. And so So it's very easy, I think, once you really dig into it and think about it, to be like, okay, that kind of makes sense. There is just absolutely nothing that would make those easy. And as someone who would love to have them, setting one up is like, okay, I've never met a person who wants to eat at one, except for a handful of expats, and mostly just when we ask about it. And I've never met someone who knows how to cook the food. So even if you found someone, you're at this incredible risk that they decide to quit on you, and then you're stuck in a situation where you don't have anyone to cook your food because the one cook is gone and there's no one to train them, right? You have no fallbacks. So it becomes a very risky situation as a business person in so many ways, right off the bat. So that, I think, is going to be just crippling factors. I would love there to be a great answer on that, to like, oh, all we got to do is this thing and solve it, and life is easy, but it really is not. Now, my favorite vegetarian restaurant, there was one that I really liked in Managua, and it is gone. So I'm very sad about that. We do have Crocodile here in Leon, which is really good. All their food is really excellent. But my favorite by far is Comida Vegetariana Tianlan Shi in Hinotepe. They are absolutely freaking fantastic. And everyone should go eat there all the time, and make sure that they never go out of business. Although they're always busy, so it's really not a risk. They are recognized as one of the best restaurants in the country, being out in the middle of kind of nowhere, which is cool. So definitely check them out. Several mangoes. How much is a new car in Nicaragua, like an SUV? Well, okay, so I'm going to divulge a little bit. You guys have to promise not to tell anyone who's not on the live stream. This is purely a thing for the live stream. I just bought a primo SUV, fully loaded, top of the range, like everything. Hybrid, which is a premium. We got the biggest one of the, so this is a 2-row, not a 3-row. Obviously 3 rows cost a lot more and are bigger. This is a sporty luxury. We've got the full sunroof. We've got the, all the packages for everything. We went crazy because there was some features that my wife needed that only were available on the top of the range. She tried every vendor that she could, every mark of car that she could, and she's like, this is the one I want. This is the nicest one. I don't care what the price is. And the price was mid-range, and so we got a 5-seater large SUV, like tons of cargo space in it, for $27 US. Is there really a rivalry between Costa Rica and Nicaragua? If so, what's it about? Yeah, there's a huge rivalry because they're basically the same country that long ago decided to split, and they went with completely different approaches to everything. And so, yeah, it's a huge rivalry because both countries used to be Nicaragua, right? And it's hard to imagine just how much different they are, and not just in like little things just about themselves, but like Nicaragua in the grand sense decided that it was a very important thing to remain a part of the CA4, to identify as part of the Central American cultural, economic shared development zone with Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. And Costa Rica, having been traditionally a part of them as a single country, was like, nope, you know what? All you guys were done, and left the group. And so Costa Rica checked out of the region and went and did their own thing, and aligned with the U.S. instead of being aligned with their sibling countries, which has left them very much as, a different place. Their cultural development over the last 200 years has been separate from the others in Central America. And so that's really, they've just gone in completely different directions and disconnected from the region so that they're able to, and it's cool, chart their own path. And they've done some great things with that. I'm not saying that they haven't done excellent things. Of course, their Gallo Pinto is not as good as ours, but in general, they've used that to their advantage in many cases. But there's also a lot of changes that have happened there. And while it's a wonderful country and wonderful people and all those things, I'm not disparaging Costa Rica, not by any shot. Their decision to be so embracing of foreign integration, the number of expats that they're cool with, the amount of everybody is welcome to come and stay and move in at massive pace and really catered to, has created a general culture that is wonderful when we want to go get Indian food, because they do have a demand for Indian food and they do have access to Indian cooks and so forth. And that's like, oh my gosh, they've done this thing that for us is such a problem. And I can go get Thai food and I can go get Lebanese food. And there's all these things that I love to do in Costa Rica because of those decisions. But I also, and Costa Rica would say, well, good, we didn't want you, right? But I have no urge to go stay in Costa Rica. I love visiting. To me, it's a great tourist destination. And I think that's what Costa Rica wants from me. They want me to come stay for a week. Stay for 2, Scott. Come eat some food, make some videos, right? Go crazy on the Indian food, get some Taco Bell because you miss it, right? Check out a few new restaurants, go to our cool cafes, enjoy the nice weather, and then go home. And that's what I want to do. So we're in great alignment as to what we want. Nicaragua is right next door. It's the place where I want to live, but sometimes I want to vacation in Costa Rica. That's great. It's kind of like, what if you loved living in Georgia, but you honestly really like taking vacations to Florida? That makes sense, right? And a whole bunch of Floridians were like, yeah, you know what we don't need? More people moving in. But our tourist industry is really important, so we'd like you to visit and see Disney World and drop some serious cash. Cool. That's our relationship with Costa Rica. It's got these cool things to do as a vacation for temporary. But just like Orlando, there is nothing that could make me want to live around the people who want to live in Orlando, right? It's not just Orlando, right? Orlando is just a place. It's the culture that has grown up around a place that's a tourist destination isn't something that I find pleasant. And it has nothing to do with Costa Ricans. It's the people that Costa Ricans have allowed in and the numbers of them that they've allowed in. And that gives them a different culture. And people need to go somewhere. And so Costa Rica decided that their fortunes made sense in that direction, and that's fine, and that gives them a vibe and options and flexibility and power and stuff that others in the region lack. And good for them for deciding to embrace that and doing it well and managing it in a very healthy way for the most part. But it doesn't change the fact that Costa Rica has become such a completely different place than the others in the region. So the natural effect of 2 countries that started off as essentially the same country, and actually were the same country many, many times, and the same region within that country, and the same long-term history and pre-Columbian eras, to then have taken these unbelievably divergent paths since then, yeah, you're going to have rivalry, for sure. Like, there's no way around it. Indigenous says, San Juan del Sur is the armpit of Nicaragua. James says, Leon have an immigration office to extend visa. Yes, it does. We're the second biggest city. If anyone gets it, we do. Indigenous says, it's on the border. That's San Juan del Sur. Sunday Fun Day, most of you know it. James says, since moving to Fundy region, that's in Canada, I really miss the food in Toronto. Yeah, I bet. Tiffany T44 says, I've seen the videos on Sunday Fun Day. Honestly, check the videos on Tuesday Booze Day up here in Leon. Very similar. James says, Raging Gun, Canadian exchange rate to Canadian dollar is a killer. James says, Pinky and Brain, world domination in digital. Tiffany, many think that is Nicaragua. Don Timoteo, Gigi, just like America like to think they are better than Mexicans, Costa Ricans like to think they are better than Nicaraguans. Luke is signing off. Who knows how long ago this was. Rajaswamy, your buddy lacks common sense. Order and enjoy one of the local meals. When in Nicaragua, do as the Nicaraguans do. Joe says, Scott, glad to see you on your live stream Thursday. Could you give us a rundown on the electrical cost to keep things going with a home of your size? Curious about running air conditioning on high. Well, we don't run air conditioning on high. We run it on very, very moderate. But so like I say in a lot of these videos about the cost of electricity, it isn't a predictable thing. There's so many factors that are going to play into this. So just in this house, and this is a great example, right? In this house, for years, our cost for 9 bedrooms. I've said this before. How many air conditioners? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of the 9 rooms have air conditioning. I guess I knew that. 7 of the 9 have air conditioning. 2 do not. I've kicked around the idea of adding them to the others. But we really have 2. We use very lightly, and it doesn't make sense. But with 7 rooms being air conditioned, this is one of them. So this one gets air conditioned like right now, but I'm not crazy about the air conditioning. So it runs kind of a maximum of 10 hours a day, some days 3 hours, right? 10 is truly a maximum. My children's rooms, they're 24/7. We have a game room. It gets run occasionally. My bedroom will typically, like, I'm fine without air conditioning, but my wife likes it. So she will often have air conditioning at night. So that's between 6 and 12 hours of the day. And then my business partner, he runs air conditioning pretty hard in his bedroom. So say 12 to 18 hours a day. So that's kind of where the air conditioning runs around the house. And once in a while, another room runs it. We have like a guest room, and that could run it. Sometimes that gets the most, because sometimes the guests who are Nicaraguan are like, I've never had air conditioning before. I've never had to pay for it. And they'll just crank it down as much as it goes and just go full tilt. And you'll be like, oh my gosh. But for 2 years living here, we varied between $85 and $95. No, between $80 and $90 per month. So 85 is about our average every month, always. That was it. $85. And I've got studio lights. I've got computers. Like right now, I've got 2 computers on my desk running. Marcela had hers over here running. I've got my gear that's like doing the show. I've got the camera plugged in and working. I've got who knows how many things charging. Another TV over there. My kids are playing video games. They've got computers on. Like, there's so many things going on around the house right now that aren't just air conditioners. We're using a lot of power, and that's about $85. Now, this year we did that change that I've talked about, that sometimes you are on fixed price and switch to not fixed, and then with 9 bedrooms and stuff, yeah, it's gone up to I think we pay about $350 to $400. Right, so this is a huge space with a ton of air conditioning stuff being used, and also no one's used to really worrying about it because we were on a lower price tier, and now we're on a higher price tier, and now it's like, oh, we should probably watch this. But these same people, without the constant flow of guests living in Texas, our bill was between $400 and $800 per month for 11 years. And that was long ago, right? So that was the equivalent of much more today, more like $700 to $1,400 per month that we were paying in Texas compared to here. So even with much more heat year round and many more rooms, because that was a 3-bedroom, this is a 9, and more people living in it continuously, the amount we pay even at the high tier here is a fraction of what we paid in the US, just the practicality of how things work. But if you break it down by kilowatt hour, technically they bill higher per kilowatt hour here than in the US. But whatever we do, using so many more things, we use fewer kilowatt hours, or they don't bill us for all of them. However you want to look at it, we don't know. But we do know that billing every kilowatt hour is not a standard thing. Kilowatt hours are not a flat rate. How you're billed is not a consistent thing. Like, there's so many things there's so many variables that if you're downtown and you're running air conditioning for a downtown colonial house and you want to keep it cool like an American house, you could spend thousands on electrical costs. But if you live out in the barrio and you're cooling way better than you cooled in the United States, you might spend $100. And my apartment, as an example, its bill was always $10 to $11 with 2 air conditioners. Like, it's a small place, right? But it's on fixed cost. It's always been crazy affordable. And sure, we try to be responsible with the air conditioner. We try not to leave it running when we leave the place. We try not to do crazy things. We don't air condition rooms we don't need, right? Whatever. But sometimes you leave them on by accident. Sometimes it's just a hot day and you close all the doors and you run the bedroom air conditioners and air condition the living room with it or whatever. We're not super concerned about it. And I know Marcela's kids tended to leave room doors open because they'd never had air conditioning, and the concept that it's full of cold air and if you leave the door open it'll all pour out doesn't occur to them. And so it's not something that they've gotten used to. So Nicaraguans who are introduced to air conditioning tend to be wildly inefficient with it, whereas Americans are like, if you open that door there's pressure and it sucks the air out, and like, don't do that. Yeah. So those are the prices that we've experienced. When I lived in Granada a long time ago, we had a place that was on high cost. It was in the downtown tourist area. It somehow was, but we didn't pay the electric directly. So the renter, the people renting us the house, were charging us $450. Is that what the electric actually was? I bet not, but we don't have a way to prove it. Here's we're running air conditioning on high. Jan says, I have to go to sleep for a change. I'll check back. To everyone have fun. In digital format, have you seen Mosquito Coast, the movie? Thanks. Larry says, do you need Playa Chiquillo videos this weekend? Yeah, give me some videos from up there. Let's see what it's like. Philly Ray's here. Can you live there comfortably for $3,500? Anybody with any clue can live here comfortably for $3,500, even with a family of 4. Hard to not be able to live comfortably. I mean, he's right. It can be a challenge, and it does matter what your definition of comfortable is. But you can certainly live in a 9-bedroom house with air conditioning in 7 of the rooms for $3,500, and even buy a car. Buying a car will stretch your budget a bit, but like I said, $27K for a brand new premium SUV. My business partner bought a quite nice, I really like it, regular car, brand new, $20K, right? Really nice, like comfy with Apple AirPlay and good air conditioning and drives well and sporty and fun to drive. Is it flashy? No, like I say, we're not getting Lamborghinis here, but fun cars that are better than average, right, for very cheap. Gigi says, you mentioned the wind blowing through windows and throughout the house. Is it usually breezy in Nicaragua? It is usually breezy. So remember, Nicaragua is a country. Right, so one of the reasons we didn't like Granada when we lived there is it's not very breezy. Everyone says there's a breeze off the lake. I'm like, no, you're missing. The breeze goes past, right? It's over the lake. You're to the side of the lake. It doesn't come over downtown. So it's not as nice as people would think from that perspective. So we felt warmer in Granada than we do in León, which is technically hotter. Here in León, yeah, there tends to be a breeze. We're in a breezy part of the country. So every city, every location is going to be different as far as breezes. Crucero has a breeze that will rip the paint off your house and the skin off your bones much of the year, including with sulfuric acid because it's volcanic air coming across there. So always a breeze. But out here in León, it's moderate. Come April, it goes away. But it's back. It's only one little bit that we have the doldrums. Much of the country is mostly windy, but again, everywhere is different. Right, so you need to look at individual cities and say, how windy is it? Like Managua is honestly not that windy. There's always some breeze, and the weather is pretty good overall. But the wind coming through Managua isn't that strong. But Ciudad Sandino, I think it's a bit better. Don Timoteo says, there was an Indian restaurant in Granada. It moved to Managua. It was near El Predio Park in Managua. I never went there, and I have no idea if it's still there. Let me tell you, everyone I know, Don, has looked recently for Indian restaurants, and we all have come to the same conclusion. Every single thing that is listed has gone out of business or disappeared completely, and no one can find it. There was some place a year or 2 ago that I managed to order one Indian dish from a place that wasn't really Indian, and they did a decent job, and that was about it. I can't remember where it was. I don't know if it's still around, and it was not exactly an Indian restaurant. But we know there's been a number in Managua that we have looked into fairly recently. Luke looked into one. I looked into one, and they're all gone. Raja says, yes, indeed. I agree with you about the culture vibe in Florida. My adult son always felt something. Raja says, Scott, see my chat just after Pinky in the Brain comment about level 3 travel advisory. I didn't see it. I will. Oh, yeah, he's going to retype it. Okay, thanks. U.S. State Department issued level 3 travel caution advisory for Nicaragua. Isn't that sad? Not really. It means it's completely safe. They only issue level 3 when they are panicking that we're doing things so right that they don't know what to do. I think the U.S. government is trying to control our travel. They are definitely trying to control your travel. That's why we have 2 different videos on State Departments putting out fake things for that. So for anyone who is wondering about that video, I do have, oh, that's not it. There we go. Copy link. Can you trust the State Department? Boom. No, you cannot. And then it's basically like yesterday's video or something. Yeah, yesterday's video is the exact same thing, but why Canada's State Department or equivalent of puts out fake things and stories of those. So definitely things that have come up relatively recently. Yeah, pretty much the U.S. always has just crazy travel advisories. Like they're completely random. They have no connection to reality whatsoever. So the real thing is, but here's actually a good thing, right? And people don't understand this. But from a Nicaraguan perspective, Americans who are going to believe the State Department website aren't actually people that most of the countries in the region are really looking to encourage. They hope that people will learn and not have that vibe, that they won't go and trust the government. But if someone is going to go and say, I'm going to ignore basic travel knowledge, I'm going to ignore common sense, I'm going to ignore my political knowledge of the country, and I'm going to put my safety faith in the government of the United States, a country who has openly waged war and flat out tries to do damage to the region, well, they don't want people who have that kind of faith coming down here because those people are easily manipulated. Those people are very difficult to sway to wanting to be good citizens here. Not that that may not be their intent, but when they come down and they walk around and they're safe and life is cheap and things are good, they may still go read American news and say, oh, terrible things happened in Nicaragua right on my street today. Nicaragua's covering it up. They're not covering it up. It didn't happen. It was your street. Look out the window, right? They're so easily manipulated in many cases that makes for a dangerous group of people to invite in large numbers. Now, you're not targeting them. And so the fact that the State Department puts out those warnings, it is very sad. It's terrible that the United States government would manipulate its own people. It's also incredibly sad that the people of the United States in such large numbers would blindly believe a government who has openly told them that their mandate is to lie to them, to manipulate them in ways that make sense for them. Those are things that were actually mandated, right, under Obama. They may have happened before that, but under Obama, that law, the propaganda law, came out. And so that State Department site isn't even supposed to give you true information. It falls under the parts of the government whose job is to use its tools to tell you what they want you to do, not to tell you what's actually true. So given that Americans have this information from their own government and then don't trust a government that told you not to trust them, yeah, they're not going to make good expats anywhere in large numbers. Any individual might, but in any number, no. So actually, the U.S. is doing a favor by filtering out the people who would be the worst general group to come to these countries and letting the smart people, the independent thinkers, the people who are open to learning from their experiences, the people who are willing to come and find out for themselves and actually keep an open mind, they're the ones who are going to come in bigger numbers. And so, honestly, we benefit from that. It doesn't give us volume, but it gives us quality, right? Quality over quantity. What are the safer parts of Costa Rica? Parts away from tourists. Right? Big cities and tourist areas are more dangerous. Villages and stuff, much safer. It really is. Tourists, in the case of Costa Rica and many places, very normal, encourage crime. Right? Gigi says, hey, I'm from Orlando, and the people here are very nice. And there's always something to do. That took a while for that to be from when I said it until we got to there. It's quite a large gap. So for those who weren't on earlier, I was out all day getting a car registered, and it was the entire day. And then after the day was over, I had to go back tomorrow because we couldn't get it done. So it was a completely insane day. We started at 7:30 this morning, and I fired up the live stream as soon as I got home. That was my day, whole day registering a car. So that's going to be a story for the show. Talk about that, but we know a bit more about the process and what you need to do. And at the end of the day, it was just a long, annoying day, and we're getting things done. So and new car stuff to be talking about. So there's going to be a lot of cool car stuff going on the show soon. I gotta send a note. Milton says, do you feel the current correction in the American market is overdone, or do you think this could be part of a start of a larger correction? That's a hard one to say. So I think overall the U.S. is bound for a large correction. Whether it's going to go through that correction now or not is I think the bigger question. Is it in the midst of kicking off a correction, or is it a minor correction leading to something big? I lean towards this as the big correction kind of starting now. Nothing good is happening in the U.S. The inflation rates, the cost of living, you now have a trade war going on. Like, no one wins from a trade war, right? It's just like real wars. Trade wars just have a bunch of losers. They don't have these winners who are like, yes, this worked out so well. No one ever wins in a trade war, right? It's just a bunch of powerful places making themselves less powerful. The goal, of course, is mayhem, not economy. What would someone in Managua that works at a big company and is a high-level manager make in a month? A high-income earner. So you're generally considered pretty high income anytime you're over $1,000. And yes, James, it's not as easy as just doing it, right? It's not like you just snap your fingers and get it. In order to get your Nicaraguan driver's license easy, you have to have your American driver's license. So if you don't have your, well, whatever foreign one you are, if you don't have your foreign driver's license, you can't just magically get your Nicaraguan ones. There is a way to get it. I can do it, but it's not trivial. It is easier to fly to the U.S., get that one, and fly back. Like, we've talked to people, they're like, oh, that's 100 times easier. So much less work, and it's still a lot of work. So you'd generally consider someone to be really high income if they're making, $2,000 plus a month, I would say. 800 gets you into middle class. Upper class is probably more like 8,000, 6,000 to 8,000 a month. If you're making, 10,000 a month here, you are making money. Like, you're living in mansions, you are hiding where you live, you have crazy things going on, you care about nothing. That's, somewhere quite a bit less than 10,000 a month makes you wildly rich here. And of course, different things affect you, right? If you're a foreigner making 10,000 a month, often you have some pretty big advantages over a local, depending on how they're doing it. But mostly locals, when they're doing that, are doing so through business ownership and such. No one's going to have a salary like that, of course. Salaries, I know people who've made like 1,100 in salaries. Finding people who are making much more than that, very rare, right? It must exist, right? If you're an executive at some really high-ranking place, of course there's going to be more money. But even like regional managers of some of the biggest companies, I think, are really struggling to get above 2,000 or even to 2,000. But if you think about what you're able to do with $2,000 a month as a single earner, right? Presumably you easily are, well, you're almost certainly either you're single or you have another income in most cases. So easily, if you're making 2,000, your spouse probably can make 1,000, if not more. So you may have a household income of 3,000 plus, and then even if you have kids, obviously you can live really, really well with that kind of money. So that's people that we know, and basically anyone who's making 1,000 per person. We have friends who make a little bit over 1,000, and they're a couple. My gosh, every time you talk to them, they're out at a bar, out at a club. They're just spending money like crazy, and and they have extra bedrooms that they don't need. They have extra cars. They're buying new cars. Not Lamborghinis, but they're going out and buying nice cars that I'm not spending money on from more expensive brands, and living in nice neighborhoods and stuff. Not that I don't, but they find it very easy to make money. Have I ever thought about getting into agriculture, like beef, sheep, crops, etc., in light of Nicaragua being very agrarian? Would that be plausible for an expat? We think about everything, right? Because I'm a business person. I come from a business person background, and I grew up on a farm. So do I think about agriculture, especially because I work in restaurants and stuff? Yeah, we've thought about it. But like most things, getting into business in Nicaragua is hard enough from the beginning, and competing with both the big companies that are here, because most of the land is owned by like Walmart here. They're the big farming aggregate, and it's something that any Nicaraguan can do, right? So let's say I'm going to get into, sheep. Okay, great. I'm going to have a flock, and I'm going to get some space, and there is no aspect of that I have the advantage in. A Nicaraguan who has access to the same amount of money as me has more ability to do every aspect of that as well or better than me. So for me to do it means I'm taking on more risk and more challenge for a thing that they've not decided to do. So why is a Nicaraguan not doing it? Well, maybe sheep aren't fun and they just really hate that job and it's not worth the money. But there's a lot of unemployed Nicaraguans. If there's a good thing like that that's so accessible, so well known, so much of an advantage to a Nicaraguan, it's a pretty bad idea to jump into it because the people who know better than me aren't jumping into it. That doesn't mean that you can't make money at it, but it means that there's much higher risk than you really should be accepting, and so forth. James says, you're considered local, of course. Locals get licenses, yes, and it's extremely hard. All the locals I know who come from, ground zero, it is an expensive, time-consuming process. Most of them are able to not go to work for long periods of time because they're out of work and they get the driver's licenses either as children or when they can take time off of work. For me, it would mean my company grinding to a halt and an insane cost for me to do that in order to get the license. It's not like the US and Canada where you can do it without taking time off of work. So it's quite different. We've seriously looked into it. I've looked into it with lawyers, and the answer is it is so much cheaper and faster and more efficient to just go to the United States, get the license that they owe me, come back, and then I have no process here. So we've seriously looked into it. No one can come up with a process that makes it work. I don't have the flexibility to just shut down my business and my work to go sit through the required classes to get a driver's license here. So it's not that simple. The process isn't hard, and yes, locals do it. But like Marcela, it's been on her job task list for 2 years to get a license, and she's never been able to schedule the time to do it because it's so intensive. Of the locals, like my chauffeur here who drives, he drives on a U.S. license, right? Goes to the U.S., keeps his license up to date, comes back down here and drives because it's easier than dealing with it here. So that's pretty common. Of the taxi drivers and stuff of people who drive here, mostly they did it when they were kids and they were in school and taking the time off wasn't a big deal, or they did it when they were unemployed or in university or something. I don't know very many adults going through and doing it. Of those that I do know, typically they're retired and they're like, it's not that big a deal, and it's not because they have plenty of time to do it. For me, that time has to come out of something. So it's a bit of a challenge. T44 says, good night. Thanks for the wealth of knowledge, Scott. Nicaragua to the world. The egg. All right, and we have caught up for the first time tonight. We're caught up on the stream, on the comments. Very good. So what's everybody up to this weekend? What do we got going on? Hopefully everyone who's down here, who is female, is heading out to Desperados on Saturday night for the Ladies' Night show. That'll be something very different. It's a completely new thing they're trying, and they're putting so much effort into this. So please, everyone, come out and check it out and show some support. Just checking all the messages, seeing who's messaging me. Milton says, how will you navigate in terms of where you live when your daughter is ready for uni? Neither of my kids have the slightest interest in uni whatsoever, so I find it unlikely that they will go. Neither of them has any career path, and honestly, there's very few career paths from a business perspective where university helps you. The careers that university helps with generally are degrees where university is required. Neither of my kids will entertain anything like that. My own uni experience was 100% waste. Every moment I spent in uni became crippling to the rest of my life. My wife's experience was she really enjoyed university. I enjoyed it. It was fun. And she tends to feel like, oh, it's such an important experience, but she can't show any benefit that she ever got from it. It also financially crippled her for life. And really, if she put real thought into it, it was, there's no way she could make that decision again. Going back and knowing what she knows would not make any sense for her. My kids have things that they want to do and things that they prioritize that are so well defined and they've been so dedicated to for so long. Much like me, I was way past, like, when I did go to uni, I was hired by the university to teach my own classes on my second day of classes. I had been doing work that my professors couldn't do since I was 13. I had started my field long before. I had a strong resume by the time I was at uni. And so the idea of spending money and taking that time off to go to uni just doesn't really make sense. My kids have the advantage of that they will, instantly be owners of a multinational corporation. When they come of age, they have the ability to work for their own company anytime that they want to. They have careers outside of that they want to do, that they're ready to start on already long before they would start at uni. And instead of going to uni to learn from people who aren't ambitious enough to go into those fields, they can just go into those fields and get started right away and get years of experience at a fraction of the cost as they would for uni. So for my kids, the things they want to do, unless their lives change 180 degrees, like every aspect of their lives completely change, there's no way that they will consider university. And if they do, it will be almost guaranteed that they will be older in life, like say 25, and be at a point where they've done things, they've tried things without uni, ended up failing or making big life changes and want to go into something where uni would then benefit them. But being who they are, the chances that it will be beneficial for them is so slim, but the chances that it will do real damage to their careers is so high that just don't see it happening. And of course, it's different for everybody, right? I'm not saying that uni isn't right for a lot of people. You want to be a teacher, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you have to go to uni, right? If you're coming from after I had already been accepted to the #1 school in the country in the 1990s, I gave it a try. It was garbage. I dropped out because I didn't like the low quality